Good evening, everybody. I don't think I've gotten a proper night's sleep in the last week, possibly week and a half, and I'm really feeling it. So, um, this is why we're doing the usual, well, somewhat unintentionally usual, um, Friday evening late start. And I will very briefly caution that I may not go for sort of the usual time that I have, just because the feeling that I had sort of starting the stream was um, I I think there's value in being consistent in terms of broadcasting. And what I have tended to notice is that if I've not really been feeling up to streaming, um, oh, what's going on here? I'm slightly worried that the audio may not be coming through, so I'm gonna have to listen to my voice. Sadly, so I'm gonna have. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so basically, the big worry, the big worry at the start is, if I give into that feeling that I don't want to be streaming, um, one day, second day that becomes a habit, third day the channel is effectively dead. And I have also found that normally on the days that I stream and I didn't feel up to it, those actually wind up being casts that I'm kind of happy that I went. So that's another reason why I'm kind of making a go of it. But on the other hand, I'm definitely feeling like I'm just feeling the consequences of not getting enough sleep. But one compromise position for today has been that there's been some news for me particularly. So some of you will know that I did something for Dwarf Fortress a little while ago, and it provoked responses. Not necessarily the responses I wanted, but eh, beggars can't be choosers. Um, but I was kind of keeping mum about it because the so basically, Dwarf Fortress is by Bay 12 Games, Zach and Tarn Adams. It is the Steam version, which is due out on December the 6th, is published by Kit Fox Games, which is led by or captained by Tanya Short of Moon Hunters and Boyfriend Dungeon fame. Certainly, Tanya is not the only person at Kit Fox. There's actually a pretty, I don't want to say a deep talent pool because that would imply that there's a lot of people who work there, and there isn't. But there's certainly a lot of talent there. And the studio was co-founded. But in any case, kind of my primary contact since Victoria Tran left for Among Us has been Tanya Short, which also makes me feel very bad because anybody who's gotten an email from me knows that I tend to go on a little bit like my dialogue. And obviously, if you are about to release Dwarf Fortress, in less than a week, you might have a few other things on your mind than some data guy. But anyways, I didn't really want to spend, so I didn't, reply to any of the tweets. I didn't really engage beyond talking on the channel here about the work that I did, because essentially, Tanya was proofreading sort of the article that I'd given her an article, which was the source of her original tweet. And then I'd made some adjustments for public consumption, let's say. And sort of following, there's a little bit of back and forth because I think I probably left in some errors as well. But following some back and forth, she sort of said, well, didn't say, but like basically, I think she wanted to check with the Adams brothers to make sure they were sort of okay with us being released. I will actually mention that. So I think it's Tarn Adams. I could probably look this up, but one of my understanding is at least one of the Adams brothers has a background in mathematics, and I'm not trying to suggest that the analysis that I did was like sloppy or slash slapdash, but needless to say, like, there is the sort of thing that you do and explain to people who maybe statistics is not their first language. And then there's the thing you do for sort of like an academic audience. And so, in one sense, if I'm going to be doing some kind of an analysis of a game that, this developer's putting up, of course it's completely reasonable that, that they're going to look at it and want to review it. But on the other hand, there is that side of me that's like, could I just like write a 20-page, I know here are all the problems, please don't yell at me version. Now, the thing is, just because you're in mathematics doesn't mean that, you necessarily know all of the, like, maybe Terence Tao knows all of mathematics, but like other than that, that's a completely, silly worry for me to have. And more importantly, the purpose of putting out articles like that is to get feedback, hopefully constructive feedback that you can use to make your future work better. But needless to say, it was a little embarrassing just because I'm very aware. I'm quite aware of the limitations to the work. But in any case, center some revisions just to try and make it a little bit more clear for a general audience, because originally the thing that I'd written to her was specifically for sort of Kitfox's eyes only. And that article is out now after a little bit of back and forth. But on top of that, Victoria Tran gave me a nice Discord message explaining that Johnny Big Time just went live. Maybe we'll go watch him instead. Sorry, I'm still trying to get into the broadcasting mode. But yeah, basically, she gave a GDC talk some time back. I believe this was still when GDC was a remote event. And this is like back of the napkin stuff for me, but she'd been taking a look at some of her TikTok stuff and kind of coming up with some hypotheses. I can't even remember. I don't want to say, there's one thing that I know about it that I don't want to, how do I put it? There's something that reminded me in that video that there was a more comprehensive email that I sent her, and I don't want to say how I know that because there's no way for me to say it without it sounding mean. And I don't mean it in a mean way. I actually mean it in a very positive way. But you need context, and I think it's really inappropriate to just like put out the contents of emails you have for people on its own. Anyways, needless to say, I'd forgotten, and there was an indicator in the presentation that said, oh yeah, I actually did do a proper look at this. So in any case, I'm really rambling here. This is like 10 minutes of nothing, but it's been a neat day for data stuff for me because, in fact, in Kitfox in particular, and actually I'll really highlight Victoria here, who is certainly sort of this is a terrible term, but a thought leader among the community managing mavens. She has a particular talent for finding a time when I'm feeling, not like, something like a very sort of third-rate, an analyst or basically just feeling like I've been given an opportunity to look at some game data, but I'm not really delivering in terms of what would be interesting for developers. And then, there'll be little things like there was one day where she mentioned, like I've kept everything you've ever written. Like I review it still. And I'm like, oh man. And then like there's that side of me, I'm like, oh, what if I made a mistake? But like little things like that, for me at least, are a nice little confidence booster, because for me, anything that I do, I'm always going to see the mistakes and maybe not always pay attention to, some of the things that are actually quite good there and that are novel. And it's a shame because I can actually point out some cases where I found stuff that hasn't really been picked up, but I think is actually very helpful for game developers. Um, but today was one of those nice days where I sort of understand that no matter what, the Dwarf Fortress stuff is probably going to be misunderstood. But in the end, it was a nice little bit of validation for a couple of data things that I did. So I was going to take the time to talk about those, and then hopefully through the process of doing that, number one, it'll give me a chance to do some sort of question and answer and things along those lines. But number two, hopefully that'll bring the energy up, and then I can figure out what I'm going to play today. But hopefully this isn't too dry for all of you, because this is going to be something of a reading stream. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to highlight the original tweet. I don't want to spend too much time ranting at like Twitter stuff, because I think it's better to take the time handling the article itself. But there are definitely some cases where I sort of didn't really think the response was... I think the response kind of failed to understand what the benefit of a particular thing is. But yeah, I think probably it's best to do, because I gave this narrative of sort of talking about the Dwarf Fortress stuff and, in the original tweet, and then how now I'm sort of engaging individually with what came up. I'm going to, I think I'll do it in chronological order. So behold, Twitter. So back on November 22nd, and this was, despite my claims that I write like long emails that nobody reads, if I want someone to read an email, I'm actually pretty good at coming up with a title. So there's a very small turnaround between me sending that email and this tweet coming up. So on November 22nd in the morning, Tanya writes, "Our friendly neighborhood statistician just predicted that Dwarf Fortress would sell roughly 160,000, between 120,000 to 200,000 units in the first 2 months. Writing this here so we can reality check afterwards." And Tanya was actually really nice, because she replied and said, I think it was because she started taking a look at some of the replies that were coming through, and said, "Hey, just so you know, I put this thing out, and maybe that was inappropriate. Like, I hope you don't think that was a bad..." I'm paraphrasing here, but and I was totally fine with it, because like the purpose of giving one of the reasons why I sent her the analysis was to be accountable for... Oh, Takri, thank you very much for the Prime. 1/2 of a year. Time flies. I hope you're doing well. We're going to be going over the Dwarf Fortress article, so my apologies if you have already read it. And more importantly, thank you very much for your continued support, because you already give a lot in terms of, interaction and comments. So, yeah, so there's actually a couple of things that I like about Tanya's original post. And this is because she reported not just the point estimate, but the range, which is something, if you've read my article recently, not the one that I wrote for KitFox, but the thing that I put on my own blog, I actually think this is a major omission in a lot of analysis in that for like data-driven articles. I think a lot of people tend to ignore measures of variance, and as a result, their data is not necessarily that useful. And then the other thing is that she posted, posted the result ahead of time in the same spirit in which I gave her the forecast. It was really clear up front saying, like, please don't use this for a business decision. There's a lot of problems with using this as a business decision, but I'm giving this to you now because what will be obvious after release is not necessarily obvious ahead of time. It's like we can imagine a couple of things, a couple of scenarios happening, right? Let's say December 6th comes by and Dwarf Fortress blows the doors off. It is more successful than Cyberpunk 2077. Essentially everybody associated with the project becomes millionaires overnight. Nobody's really going to care that the point estimate was 160,000. People are going to dance on my grave and talk about what an idiot I was. But, this is purely positive for everyone. And if Dwarf Fortress comes out and it isn't successful, like it isn't notably successful, because obviously this is a very long-standing and a very popular game. It's one that has sort of, it probably more than anything has inspired this sort of renewed interest in the sim style of game. So, games like, hey, how you doing, Senior Q? Um, I'm very tired, so we're doing just chatting for the start. But I did also have some data news coming up, which makes me feel good. But yeah, so like let's say that it's not like a tremendous success, even though this is a game that inspired things like RimWorld. There's a story that Minecraft was inspired by Dwarf Fortress, but to be completely honest with you, I think Infiniminer is a much more clear and lesser recognized influence on Minecraft. But yeah, I mean, just it's clear to see that it's not just that this style of game has become. You could also say Industries of Titan, for that matter. But basically, it's fair to say that there is a style of game that owes a lot to Dwarf Fortress. And Dwarf Fortress has been made available for free for a very long time. And, the impending Steam release is highly anticipated. So you were expecting this is going to be something that's very successful. But if it isn't, there's going to be some... Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I guess I'm not sorry to hear finals, because finals means that, you're in school, and that, I think being in school is generally a good thing. But it's going to be stressful, it sounds like. So I wish you luck. I definitely remember the feeling of getting ready for finals. It was never fun. But make sure you're prepared. As long as you're prepared, I'm sure you'll do fine. If you're not prepared, now's the time to get prepared. But keep your head, and I really hope you do well. And if you don't, we're still here. We still think highly of you. But yeah, anyways, so there's going to be talk of Indie Apocalypse. Some people are going to say, "Oh, how could Kitfox screw up the release of Dwarf Fortress?" Everybody's going to have an opinion about how it happens. Now, just to be clear, I am not predicting that the Dwarf Fortress is going to do badly. I don't want Dwarf Fortress to do badly. But I'm just saying, nothing is certain in life, and when an event has happened, people are going to have a lot of opinions on how that happened. The things that people would say in the event of lower than expected sales are totally different from what people would say with higher than expected sales, obviously. But both of these sets of statements will be obvious once we know what the actual sales of Dwarf Fortress are. And you also have this danger when you're an analyst, right? Once you know the state of the world, you are going to be looking at different things, and sometimes what you're doing is focusing on survivors more than you should. And so this is the whole point of doing something ahead of time, even though the result is potentially quite low. So in any case, Tanya's original tweet I actually thought was great because it did something important, which is to report the range, and also to highlight that this is, we're posting it here so that we can't pretend that we said something else before, and then we see what comes out. So some retweets, some likes, and some comments, some of which I think are fair and some are less fair. So we're going to go over a few of these. There is one that I replied to on here, which I waited for today. So Harvey Carmen, who I think it says Composer Carmen, but it seems like they are interested in doing some kind of data analysis. It's a long shot, I know, but I would love for a chance to chat with a statistician about how the forecast has been done. Best of luck with the launch. Very exciting moment. So there is one minor change. The only reason why I didn't really insist on it, but I just kind of gave Tanya a heads up. I said, I am actually an economist, not a statistician, because one thing I will say is that some of the things that economists do, statisticians think it's like, you're not allowed to do that. That's totally wrong, and I didn't want to ruffle any feathers. I'm not in a position to speak with authority on statistics. I'm arguably not in a position to speak with authority on economics. But at least in this case here, my training is going to be tinted by by an economic background, and on the odd chance that somebody was a proper statistician, saying that this is representative of how a statistician would do things, I wanted to just sort of move aside. So if any of you happen to care about that stuff, there you go. So I gave them the Medium link here just because, probably this will already cover what they want. There's an appendix for nerds, which I am not going to read, but I can at least highlight it if you're interested. And then I just sort of invited them. Now, Jake Burkett's actually done some interesting work before. Now, this was actually sometime later on in the day, but he says, interesting. If I were to go on recentish median numbers, I'd go followers, 120,000 times 10 equals wish lists, then wish list times 0.2 equals 240,000 units in week 1. Month one won't be a ton higher. However, I believe you can run a sale after 6 weeks, so within the first 2 months, which could be a decent boost, maybe another 50,000 units. I'd hope for 2 to 4% of your post-launch wish lists would convert in the first sale. But the big question is, can it convert above the median due to the popularity, or will the fact it was free hurt sales? Anyway, good luck. Addendum, I was going to be conservative, but I'd go for wishlist converting at 5% at worst, so 60k units in week 1, but I'd be surprised if this were the case. But of course, it could go higher than 20%, which would be amazing. At least you know that with that many wish lists, even if Steam doesn't feature it, and I'm sure they will, that it will organically get to the top of a bunch of lists, and you can main capsule and the main capsule and the accompanying algorithmic boost increase your odds of 20% plus conversion. It's definitely one to watch. Anyway, LOL, I'm sure you feel totally relaxed about it. So one thing that's important to remember here, right, is that you wouldn't know it from here, but my confidence, my confidence interval was actually higher. So you can sort of see it in the image here. It was 100, lower bound was 119,271. Upper was 256,800. So I think probably because he's saying here, 240k units in week 1. It might blow past but I would have to actually in month 1. Like there is a drop off, but it's not going to be that high. But it's not that far off from the upper bound, and this is something that's going to happen a lot with some of the comments here. So the funny thing is that it's a different methodology because apparently the new hotness, which I actually wasn't aware of, is not to worry about wish lists, but to go by the number of people following the game. And I wasn't aware of that. One of the things I was trying to do here was to somewhat suggest that maybe wish lists aren't a very good forecasting tool. But in any case, so Jake, I just want to highlight here, Jake actually does some really useful data analysis. There are things I disagree with him on, the important thing here is the reason why I'm not more public in terms of disagreement with some game data stuff that I see is that there can be, that can sort of be perceived as some sort of like a grudge or like, stabbing at, people in the dark or something along those lines. I actually think I've looked at some of the data stuff that's come out, and Jake not only I think is consistently doing some of the higher quality data analysis, but when I took a look at some of his early work and compared it to some of the leaks that had been revealed in terms of Steam, it turns out that Jake's original stuff was very, very insightful. Like it basically got what turned out to be the real numbers quite closely. And so, there's some value in that. It also just speaks to the value of statistics and things like that. But like even worries that we might have had about using things like convenience samples and all of that, at least as far as some of Jake's early work, like maybe you just got lucky. But it really actually seemed to hold up, even with the benefit of some hindsight. So I definitely tend to pay attention when I see stuff like that. Because I started seeing a few negative comments coming in, I said, that guy's probably just preemptively mad because he loses so much. Morgan Jaffet. So this is a name you probably won't know, but you might recognize if I said Defiant Dev. So this would be, who is it? Hand of Fate 1 and 2. Apparently he wrote a game called Freedom Force. And I believe is currently a writer on Capes, which was that demo that I played. A lot of comments like this: seems too low unless you're charging a crazy high price. Incidentally, I don't believe a high price is necessarily going to be something that stops the game from selling at a at a good clip. There's some very interesting things. I'm not going to suggest that the usual like downward sloping demand curve doesn't apply for video games, but it's very, I would say it's the relationships that you see on Steam between low prices and high prices are not necessarily the things that you would like. Basically, it's because they're different products. There's an article I'm doing on competitive, monopolistic competition, which kind of tries to explain this. But like, I suspect that Dwarf Fortress can actually get away with charging a significantly higher price than what they're going to, and I suspect people would still pay. But the thing is, I'm not in a position to tell Kitfox Games how to run their business. So, and we'll only ever have the version of history where, they charge whatever they charge. So, the prediction uses historical Kitfox data, and so none of our games have been potential snowballs of this magnitude. So it'll be fun to see how low it is. I'm actually kind of interested in that because I would have thought Boyfriend Dungeon counted as one, but perhaps I'm wrong. Kyler Kelly Tan, what is the user base of the free version? Tanya says depends how you count it. 15 years of free installs can be sliced a few different ways. A lot of people saying I double it, which again, if you double it, it's actually still within my confidence interval. So Lars is another actually really good data figure in for like gaming stuff. So he says, I'll post a manifold market. I'm not sure what that is, but I would be, whatever it is, I'm interested to see it. Shams Rajani, so this is somebody formerly from Paradox, way off. Thank you, that's very helpful. Similarly with Mike Rose, going to be way more than that, surely. This is the point where, I'm in a no-win situation, because if it turns out that the forecast is right, it would be nice to be able to say, as I was saying, but I would actually feel very badly for Kitfox, so I can't. Cruxador, who seems to come up quite a bit, there's definitely way more people interested in it, and the number seems low to me too, but it wouldn't surprise me if a lot of potential buyers are the sort to notice the game is out and reckon they should buy it, but still not get around to it for a few months or years. And I actually think Tanya had this copied and pasted because she had to say this a lot. Yeah, the prediction uses historical Kitfox data. None of our games have been potential snowballs of this magnitude, so it'll be fun to see how low it is. I'm going to end this man's career. This is one thing that I noticed from some of the nasty, and like, just to be clear, none of this stuff is like super bad, right? But there were a couple, I don't know if they got deleted or just, the algorithm puts it down, but like there were a couple where I was like, you don't really need to be like that I read. I get the impression that some people think that this kind of a forecast is like me trying to be mean to the game. And it's like, the doctor isn't happy if they tell you you've got something nasty, right? They're doing their best given the knowledge that they have, but it's absolutely going to smash that. Can't wait. I keep forgetting. It's really real. Excited for you and your team. Continuously, I'd cautiously predict this will happen in the first week. I'm not sure how anybody can predict anything with such a wildly strange game. It will be very interesting to see how your wider audience react to it. Definitely much more than that. Wow, I hope he's wrong. It's also set to have a much longer tail than most. Is this the right place? Something 2 months in the future. I think this is a bot. Now, this is a really interesting thing. Here it says, damn, I wish that's awesome. So this is the other thing too. Like, some people look at that number and they're like, oh, wow, this is, this is really good. You'll do very well. First 2 months is launching soon. There's a few other ones. Yeah, someone else suggested 10 times, which I think is probably only a little too high. 750,000 to 1 milli before January 1st, which I think is, actually, I guess that's 1 month, not 2 months. I hope it sells millions. Would you be willing to disclose the number of wishlists you had at launch in the post-launch follow-up? I don't have that number, by the way, because the thing is not at launch yet. Maybe you should add the original Dwarf Fortress download numbers into the mix. It's very difficult to make these numbers meaningful, which, yes and no. I mean, any more than wishlists? I don't know. 10 times that, and then It's wishlisted 119 times, so it seems like a pretty conservative estimate. I'm sure people will be buying multiples for gifts too, so I'll bet you that 120,000 number in the first week. Jake helpfully corrects that's followers, not wish lists. Wish lists are probably 10 times followers. It varies. Then they will break 1 million sales in 2 months. I feel like this estimate is absurdly conservative. It's based on trends of previous Kitfox games, so they acknowledge that it's probably a low ball. So anyways, one of the things that's interesting about looking at this stuff, there's a couple quote tweets which we can cover as well, but you get the flavor of this. Oh, hang on, is there not? There used to be 3. I mean, it's not critical if we don't cover it. I can remember it's I think Jason Greenblatt and Kat Manning. So this is one of the people who makes Caves of Cud. Oh, maybe he deleted it. Well, like it's not. There's one that's a private. There's one that's a private account, but which I'm not trying to get. But there's the others. Sorry, they're the 2 quote tweets. I don't know. Like Twitter's breaking, so it's all fine. All my followers, prove this statistician wrong by definitely buying Dwarf Fortress on Steam. Multiple copies if you can, especially if you were previously on the fence. Outwit this fool number right. So, like, just to be clear, I don't think this is mean. But was it? Together we can defeat math once and for all. I'll always take up a chance to bully a statistician. Played the old version, day 1 purchase. Yeah, this one didn't have that much about... or was it? This one didn't have that much about forecast, but there was one from the other one which was talking about forecasting methods, which I wanted to highlight on in terms of differences. So the reason why I'm actually going through these replies is that it's always very interesting to release something and suddenly find out that everybody was just so many people were sitting on Dwarf Fortress forecasts and nobody never bothered to tell anyone. And there is the what was it? There was the what was it? There's the like the anchoring effect. I think this was Kahneman and Tversky's insight. So essentially, when you first see a guess, the other guess, even if that guess is wildly wrong, the other guesses tend to cluster around them, which I definitely feel happened here in some cases. But in any case, Titanic deck chair enjoyer was the one I was looking for. That is really, really low barring them completely flubbing a launch plan. So I was talking about this before, right? It's not that there's the reality of the game. It's apparently, this thing is apparently too big to fail. And I don't think that's helpful to think about games. But right now, all my data projects it is a minimum 300K pre-90 barring any social trend change. I think you're closer than this model, which is using old Kitfox data, which is why I think it'll be fun to see. Not clear how they project it unless they are benching solely against their portfolio trends. Most of my modeling for the global PC market highly values social network and social linking data, as well as competitive inventory modeling. DF is already really, really popular. If I were to seriously do this as a consultant, plug pub data into my rig and go hog wild, I would first thing bench it against Stardew, Terraria, RimWorld versus anything recent. It's still in the top 50 of PC games that have active YT communities and is heavily anticipated. Again, only way they flub it is if there's some feature set that's critical to legacy players that's missing, and that word of mouth crushes their insanely good SEO WM right now, and or mismanaged influencer plan at launch. This should be an easy grand slam for December. I know this, why I'm having a little fun with it. Sorry, I'll just get really excited when people talk about market projection. So is that a kind of bias? Like someone sees the initial, yeah, it's anchoring. It's a cognitive bias. And again, I'm like 80% sure it's Daniel Kahneman and Avos Tversky who first saw it or first recorded it. But the thing is, they also popularized a lot of this stuff. So it could be that this was an earlier discovery that they just happened to be responsible. So there is one thing I don't like about these kinds of forecasts. I mean, again, like, I've got my approach. Everybody's got their own approach. And in the end, you're going to want to look at, in the end, you're going to want to see which ones perform well, preferably out of sample and preferably over repeated experiments. But one of the things that does kind of bug me about this is when they talk about unless social trends change. Well, the last I checked, there isn't really a way to quantify social trends, right? So you kind of have it both ways. If you get the number right, you're a genius and they should pay you millions of dollars to forecast stuff. But if you're wrong, oh, well, this social trends changed. Or, again, as they say here, they had a bad influencer plan, or they, blah, blah, blah. There's like 100 different excuses you can come up with. Was it success? Success has many fathers, but failure is an orphan. The other thing that I'm a little curious about on this one is that, Dwarf Fortress is somewhat unique in the fact that it's been available for, many years before its release. And so, of course, it can have a very active YouTube community. In fact, I would point out that there's, in fact, an O'Reilly book for Dwarf Fortress. So I'm not entirely sure what this kind of an analysis is supposed to do for, a game that's not Dwarf Fortress. So, for instance, let's say we were to rewind time and apply this to Boyfriend Dungeon. Certainly there seems to be some activity for Boyfriend Dungeon prior to the release of the game, but certainly nowhere near to the level of something like Dwarf Fortress. And then the other thing that really bothers me about this, and this one comes up a lot, is when they talk about benching it against Stardew, Terraria, and RimWorld, because again, this one comes up a lot. Dwarf Fortress is arguably the easy case. Like the popularity and the success of that game has sort of already been demonstrated. It's a game that has been financed largely by its community. People have been volunteering to support its development. The Steam version is an effort to bring in some things that have been, long-standing requests, and to maybe provide some financial security for the Adams brothers that they really haven't had. It's really amazing what they have done with that game. If you consider the amount of time that they've put towards it and have not been doing so as as any kind of a commercial entity that we would normally think about. So there's something very impressive about that. And all of that is a very positive indicator for this game doing well. But the thing is that it's absolutely useless to do a forecast where you say, this game is going to be Stardew Valley. This game is going to be Terraria. This is almost like the definition of begging the question, right? We identify that this will be a successful game, so we benchmark it against other successful games and conclude that it will be a successful game. Surely if you can identify that it's appropriate to benchmark a game against, Stardew Valley or Terraria or something like that, you don't need a forecast. You've got your forecast. And so this is probably when it comes to people who are, when it comes to the main sort of quote unquote critique in terms of this approach, I think one of the big problems are that some of them sort of just seem to pull numbers out of thin air. Now, some of these people are, industry professionals. So Morgan Jaffet ran a studio, Shams Georgiani responsible for business development at Paradox. I mean, certainly, if he says that it's way too underestimated, certainly, I'm inclined to agree. Tanya thinks it's underestimated, although interestingly enough, I was able to talk to her about what her guess was, and there isn't nearly as much difference, in my view at least, in terms of what her expectations are. So, we'll see, right? But I guess for me, and again, it's important to consider my context here. So like if Morgan, if Jake, if Shams are going to come out and say their forecasts, what's embedded in a lot of those forecasts are their own, their own experience with the industry and that, right? Some of these people may also have their own industry experience. Like obviously some of these people are, in fact, a lot of the people, because Tanya's a very influential figure in terms of indies, are people who are walking the walk, right? And it's important to remember that I am not affiliated with any game developer. I'm doing this stuff because I'm interested in it. And at least up to this point, I've been, helpful enough to be able to, keep getting data and to be able to sort of respond to and just generally be able to interact with developers who want to share their data with me. But it is really important to note that, what might work sort of in the nice little, not really academic realm, but sort of treating it a little bit like an academic project, may be completely inappropriate for games, right? Or somebody who has that industry experience. So I also, I don't want to dismiss the idea of people who seem to be coming up with numbers out of thin air. Like people who just 10x it and they've got like a Twitter account, which is just numbers. Again, I don't really know what to do with that, right? Like it just seems to be that, people are just making stuff up. But the reason why I feel like I can't do that for myself is this very reason, right? I do not have industry experience. And I think the most important thing here is that, Tanya, with her experience, not just at KitFox, but before that she was at Funcom and probably other places that I'm not aware of. It would be the worst case of gamer brain I could think of to say, okay, so here's what the numbers tell me, but I, with my 0 years of experience in the game industry, am now going to tell you, captain of a successful indie studio, what I think the sales should be, right? I have absolutely no business telling her what her business is. So in this particular case here, I offered the analysis and we'll see how it turns out. And the other thing is that this will be clear in the article. There is something else going on with the analysis, but I've kind of built this up. There were a few other kind of comments in response to the article, but in this case here, the time is to show the article. So today, how many copies of Dwarf Fortress will sell? Economist studying historical KitFox data. I like that she highlighted this because obviously she had to copy and paste. 160K units in 2 months? Surely it will be more. Economist, ... Me, let's see how the Steam algorithm does. So I'll just note this isn't only my writing. Tanya had some stuff that she added and edited as well. She also added a disclaimer. Now, it's not a 13-minute article. That's with the technical appendix. But here's what we'll do. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to do some back and forth on it. So how many copies will Dwarf Fortress sell? A forecasting experiment in statistics and sales using Steam wishlists. This analysis was performed by a third-party economist, System Shock, out of professional curiosity. Sorry, can I relink that? Absolutely. Third-party economist out of professional courtesy and curiosity. KitFox hosts their analysis with permission in a spirit of knowledge sharing and transparency, knowing it may prove incorrect. Please treat all the parties involved with similar kindness and intellectual respect. It was originally written November 22nd, 2022. I should note, by the way, I'm probably coming off as more thin-skinned on this than I really am. Econ seminars are brutal, so there's nothing here that really makes me feel bad. There's cases where I think people are being unfair and maybe not really thinking through the analysis, but if the gamers are mean to me, I'll just pack up my stuff and go back to working on inflation or something. TLDR, using wishlists and treating Dwarf Fortress like a past KitFox release, Dwarf Fortress could sell roughly 160,000 units on Steam in the first 2 months. Introduction and motivation. Wishlists are a popular measure to forecast sales, but have a mixed track record of success. With the upcoming release of Dwarf Fortress, now is an opportune time to analyze how successful wishlists have been at forecasting KitFox's previous releases, and to apply the most promising methods toward forecasting Dwarf Fortress's sales. The results indicate that the forecasts based on wish lists should be the results indicate that forecasts based on wish lists should be thought of as the best available source of forecasts rather than a good source of forecasts. But there are some patterns that show promise. What is the best method of forecasting? Seven of the eight Kitfox games Kitfox Games has published on Steam. That's another one that you need to get a link for. Were considered using their net wish list prior to release. A common method for forecasting sales from wish lists involves multiplying wish lists by some number, usually a ratio of total sales to total wish lists from past releases. However, there are multiple candidates for what to estimate, what wish list information to use, and what time periods to consider. Each of the combinations of time period, sales, and wish list measures were estimated and then ranked based on their accuracy and the spread of the lower and upper bound of its confidence interval. In addition to total sales, median sales were considered, and then total sales were backcast using the previous patterns from previous releases. The results from the 117 candidates were mixed. The lowest error was 52.52% of sales, while the worst performing method had an error of 99.67%. The best performing estimate that was credible enough to use in a useful forecast had an error of 56.39% and was the result of backcasting from the median. While the candidates used to forecast Dwarf Fortress are closer to the bottom end of the errors, it is important to recognize that these error rates exceed the common contingency of 30% frequently recommended to novice developers. Key takeaways. There is some evidence that better forecasts can be obtained by considering median sales instead of totals. However, the error rates of even the best forecasts reaffirm that they are highly uncertain. How many units will Dwarf Fortress sell? Dwarf Fortress is close to release, December 6, 2022 at the time of this writing, and so the available wish list should be reasonably close to the total prior to release. While the missing weeks of wish lists may bias the estimate downward, this is a useful case to see how well the method applies in practice without knowledge of what the actual sales are. 4 methods were considered and are described by the ratio they use. Each method forecasts the first 2 months of sales for Dwarf Fortress and reports the estimate, lower bound, upper bound, and the difference spread between the upper and lower bounds. The methods are ranked by the accuracy of the method for prior Kitfox releases, with the most accurate, 57.72% at the top, and the least, 67.42% at the bottom. Each method is labeled by the ratio used to calculate the estimate, with sales as the numerator and wish list as the denominator. For example, total over mean means total sales are calculated based off the mean of wish lists, while median total means that median sales are calculated using total wish lists, and then backcast in the case of medians. Here are the results. This is Table 1, Dwarf Fortress forecasts in units sold using a 68% confidence interval. So total over mean, the point estimate was 162,905. The lower range of that, so that's one standard deviation away from the estimate, 119,271. The upper end of the confidence interval is 256,879, and the spread was 137,608 units. This is basically just because I talked before earlier about prioritizing things that, first of all, had a high accuracy, but also a more narrow spread, because as you can see, like 137 units is a really wide range, and we will address that later. Median over mean, 141,829, lower bound 103,500, upper 225,239, and the spread is 121,739. Total over total, this is a considerably higher estimate, 188,479, lower bound 135,82, upper bound 311,686, and the spread was 176,604. And then finally, the median over the total, point estimate 162,704, lower bound 116,424, upper bound 270,053, with a spread of 153,629. So the thing is, basically everybody who gave an estimate of like 300,000 or less, it's kind of hard to see that they're actually disagreeing with what I said, right? If you're considering within a standard deviation. But this is the problem, right? Because I don't think a lot of people are familiar with confidence intervals in games analysis. I think the people who do it professionally are, but the people who are going to comment on Twitter aren't necessarily familiar with that. Again, the results are mixed. Two of the results, including one with the lowest error, estimate around 160,000 units sold, and an average of all estimates is 163,979. Unfortunately, even with a tighter confidence interval than would be standard, there is quite a bit of variability in the results, with the spread for each estimate representing millions of dollars of revenue if Dwarf Fortress is priced comparably to other Kitfox releases. While the spread in Table 1 is wide, this is the simpler of two cases. The danger when using the narrow confidence interval is that rarer but possible outcomes with both upward and downward surprises fall outside this range. When using the standard confidence interval, the range is even larger. So Table 2 is Dwarf Fortress forecasts and units sold using a 95% confidence interval. So the best one goes from 89,223 to 935,232. So that's 846,009 units between the lower bound and the upper bound. The one that had sort of the higher level is anywhere between 99,603 to 1,750,220 units. That's in 2 months. Table 2 covers a wide range of possible scenarios, but it is almost as bad as no forecast at all. Even the most precise estimate has a range that spans over 750,000 sold. This reflects the uncertainty present in any forecast based off of wish lists, especially based off of such a small sample. What is important to note is that the middle values, the estimate column, remain the same, and it is the range of values that shifts. With a wider range, we are more confident that the true value will fall within it. Estimates like this are often more useful when reported with some kind of variance or confidence interval to express just how precise the estimate is. However, people often want a single figure, and so it's common to report the middle value. Key takeaways. Based on historical analysis of wish lists, Dwarf Fortress is forecast to sell 162,905 units within the first 2 months, give or take 40,000 units. The upside, in fact, is much higher, as seen in Table 1. The wide ranges of forecasts reflect the significant uncertainty inherent in forecasting based off of wish lists. This variability only considers the best case for forecasting based off of wish lists and does not consider other factors such as Dwarf Fortress being a special case due to its size, availability as a game off of Steam, or time available as a wish list. Epilogue Editor's Note. Editor's Note, Tanya from Kitfox. This could also be headlined, so what is the effect of the Steam algorithm in a snowball effect exactly? Because I think we're about to find out. When I shared the estimation on Twitter, multiple people felt that it was quite low. I agreed, and I'm likely to believe that 200,000 is more likely than 120,000, primarily due to the way that Steam appears to promote successfully selling games and causes them to become increasingly more successful. When I mentioned my feeling to System Chalk, they replied, even if it was 256,879 after 2 months, it'd be considered in the range. She kind of elided some bits I said here. This is basically like trying to drive with the rearview mirror, essentially kind of describing the difficulty of the approach. Meanwhile, many smart folks believe Steam followers is a more accurate tool to predict sales. In 2019, the factor prescribed was 2.5, which came down to 2 at some point. And our Steam followers are presently around 120K, which comes out to something higher, but not too far off of the statistical range. Just food for thought. So there you have it. Let's see how things go. And for the exceptionally eager, here's a more technical breakdown of the methods. So the specific games I used: Shattered Planet, Moonhunters, Shrouded Isle, Six Ages, Ride Like the Wind, Lucifer Within Us, Boyfriend Dungeon, and Paparazzi. I took Outfit for a King, but as you can see, this goes really, really long. The only thing I'll add at the bottom here is, I mean, this could be an essay on its own, but I'm going to talk about why report results you're doubtful about. Throughout the original article in this technical note, there have been cautions and compromises. If asked for my personal feelings about forecasting based off of wish lists, I would say that I'm skeptical, but would not rule out the possibility. However, my added value does not come from my opinion, but my analysis. By presenting the work, the aim is to provide additional information and hopefully provoke further research on the most promising avenues of research. It is fair to say that the relatively low point estimator for Dwarf Fortress sales forecast annoyed some people already. What is interesting is that most of the alternatives people promised fell within the confidence interval in Table 1. This may reflect less familiarity with confidence intervals. Measures of variability are not yet common in popular data articles, although it is my hope that this may change in the future. What is more important is, oh God, I should have edited this, is to where these alternatives come from. Intuitions are good and useful checks on our estimates, but if they were a good enough long-term forecasting tool, there wouldn't be so much effort put into developing alternatives. The aim has not only been to forecast Dwarf Fortress on its own, but to evaluate wishlists as a forecasting method more generally. Lying underneath the result that got attention are 100 plus potential forecasts that were not used. The purpose in forecasting Dwarf Fortress was to give a live example of the best candidates from a broad examination of wishlist measures as a whole, and to present it in a way that could not rely on what is obvious only in hindsight. Criticism is not a negative here, but rather a desirable outcome, provided it's constructive. There are different potential sources of error. One may be that it's inappropriate to compare Dwarf Fortress to Kitfox's previous releases, as seems likely to be the case. This is different than thinking that the use of the harmonic mean is mistaken, or that a minimum MAPE, so this is mean absolute percent error, of 50% is too large to make any meaningful statement. This last casts doubt on the ability to derive meaningful forecasts from wishlists at all. The hope is that by presenting both the reasoning and quantifying the uncertainty around these forecasts, the responses may go beyond simple objection and instead offer their own reasoning or promote some reflection on the practice of forecasting and the sharing of best practices. Now, I do apologize. I actually think I gave you a bad link in chat. So if you can just give me a quick second here. I think you'll be able to access this, but this isn't the thing you should be sharing with everyone. Oh, that looks like the same article. Okay, nope, that is the one then. What's weird is it doesn't have any of the user metrics, and there definitely should be some. Yeah, exactly. And like this is the big difficulty here is I didn't want to just come out and say I don't think wish lists are a good way of a good way to forecast sales. But I think a fair reading of this article would be, so like the key is here, right? The lowest error was 52.52%. So imagine here that I said, okay, so I've got a forecast method for you. You know, you're going to use this in your coffee shop or whatever, and it's going to guess how many cups of coffee you sell a day. And I back tested it. I took a look at all your previous sales for coffee. We took a look at the weather. We took a look at, previous sales and so on and so forth. And basically, when it forecast your coffee sales, on days that it sold 100 cups of coffee, on days you actually sold 100 cups of coffee, or I guess it predicted that you'd sold 100 cups of coffee, you sold 152 or 50 cups of coffee. Chances are you're not going to rely on that for your business. Like, unless you have like literally no other guess other than just to roll 100-sided die or something like that. Well, I guess if you rolled 100-sided die, it would always be below the number. But like, you get the idea, right? Like an error of 52. The 99.67 made my head explode when I took a look at that. I'm like, there is no possible way that this is useful at all. But yeah, so like the best the key behind this thing was to say, it's like, okay, so we have historical performances for Kitfox. Essentially, the exercise here is to say, let's take a big, let's take advantage of the fact that we can see history. Let's assume that it is possible to forecast a game's sales based on wish list information alone, something that I think is a very doubtful factor, but it is something that gets used a lot in terms of some of the game articles. For a while, at least, everybody was talking about getting game wish lists. So I said, let's assume that this can be done. Next, instead of just doing the thing that people normally do, let's take all of the possible combinations you can of the different wish list information. So in this case here, the things that I did, total wish lists, so net wish lists up to release, average, the arithmetic mean of wish lists of daily net wish lists, the median of daily net wish lists, and then I also used deciles. So If you know what the median is, like that middle value, the deciles are just you divide the data set into 10 even sections, and the decile, instead of like the fifth decile is the median, and then the fourth is the 40% mark 3. So like the 10th would be like the smallest number of daily net wish lists. The ninth decile would be near the top. Almost all of the days would be below that. And essentially the intuition behind that is to say that maybe maybe something like the median is appropriate, but it's actually at the lower end or the higher end that has better predictive power. And then for sales, there were 3 that I considered. So total sales within the first 2 months, or actually, sorry, over the period considered, because I considered more than 2 months. Total average sales. Now, this was kind of doomed to failure no matter what, because I don't actually have a way of turning an average over a time period into an actual sales forecast, but I'll leave that aside. And then the median again, because median, I do actually have a method to backcast. That was something that I did earlier for, it wasn't with the intention of backcasting. It was actually another form of forecasting once the game was released. But that was actually something that I did for Boyfriend Dungeon for them. So I basically just took that work and I applied it in reverse. That I said is like, okay, well, if this is what it's going to predict your median for 2 months is going to be, I already have a tool that sort of fits a curve to the sales behavior. So just plug that median back into that curve and that'll give you your sales estimate. So that was just a nice little thing where, because Kitfox took a chance on some weirdo emailing them with some ideas, they've had the advantage of being able to look at some of this stuff. So yeah, in this case here, right, it's like it's not giving some kind of priority to some method ahead of time. It's taking the assumption that we are able to do forecasts based off of wish lists, that we're doing all of these possible combinations over a range of time periods. And then once we've done all of them, I actually still have the Python program on my computer, but basically once it calculates all of those, then it says, okay, so which ones were the most accurate based on the MAPE, the mean absolute percent error, and which ones have the smallest range, so the smaller confidence interval, which, by the way, it's not easy to figure out. For me, at least, like I'm spoiled by the fact that I used to use Stata so much. I actually had to calculate my own confidence interval for a harmonic mean. I was like, oh, actually, I don't think I know how to do that. So I kind of ran around and I found a way of, like, I didn't like calculate it by hand. Ultimately, I found a way to sort of shoehorn it into SciPy, but that was an education. That was actually kind of neat. I learned how to do that. And then the nice thing about that is that the trick that I did also works for the geometric mean, which is my favorite mean, because it's the meanest of the means. And if you don't have a favorite mean, well, you just need to spend more time in Excel. So anyways, oh yeah, I guess I didn't explain what the harmonic mean. I use the harmonic mean because I'm dealing with ratios. I don't know if any of you like go running, but if you want to calculate your average speed, you actually use the harmonic mean, but maybe that's a conversation for another time. But yeah, so like, again, just remembering here that the premise is that we can get forecasts from wish lists, something that, is embedded. This is an embedded assumption, right? Given that assumption, we don't necessarily know what method will be the best. So we take the information we have, which is the history of Kitfox releases. And again, the exception here is Fit for a King, basically because it was announced a couple of weeks before release. And so the wishlist information isn't particularly useful here. And from that, we sort of horse raced all the different methods to see how well they did. So in this case here, this is why I think it's really telling that the best performing one was still 56 or 52%. This does not tell me that we should expect a lot in terms of the ability to forecast. Now, I also think there's maybe some work that you can do. So I think probably where people like Shams are saying, like, what the hell is this guy thinking, is that if you are known for releasing within a certain genre, if you have a larger data set, there's a number of different things that you can say. It's like, okay, so maybe maybe it's not predictable in a general case for developers, but maybe within genres or maybe within a certain, market segment, it's a little bit easier and you can get a little bit more of an accurate and a narrow forecast. But that's not really what I'm doing here. What I'm doing here is to say, can you in general get a forecast based off of wish lists? And maybe this is not good of me to not come down a little bit more firmly on saying that the forecasting is, that maybe this isn't a very good method. But the idea is, the idea here is that you will draw your own conclusions because you are given all of the information in terms of the level of uncertainty, both in terms of a confidence interval, but also the MAPE, the error. Now, the one thing I was kind of hoping in terms of the criticism and all of that was not like, oh, that number's wrong. It's like, obviously you want to talk about method. One of the tricky parts with the confidence interval is that, and this actually comes a little bit where I have a small disagreement with Jake Burkett. So Jake lately has been talking a lot about how games follow a power law distribution. And I think that is a very tempting train of thought that a lot of people who are good at stats tend to go down. But the difficulty is that it's actually very hard to distinguish a power law distribution from something that's not a power law distribution. And the reason why this is important is that for some power law distributions, definitely the ones that are most interesting, they don't have at least a second moment, sometimes not even a first moment, if I recall correctly. And what that means is that they don't have a mean or a variance. And so the traditional kind of inference that you're going to do just doesn't happen. Like if you don't have a variance, you can't calculate a confidence interval. But I think the finite nature of games, like there is a fixed number, or not a fixed, but there's a finite number of computers in the world. I think while the distribution may look like a power law, I think it's appropriate to say like log normal or something like that. And those distributions do have the moments that you need to do the normal type of inference. But he's still raising a really important point here, which is that for a lot of things, we're assuming a normal distribution. And maybe I'll use Wikipedia here to say what I'm talking about, because I think this is where I wind up losing people. So this thing, you've probably seen this red one like 1,000 times. It's sometimes called a bell curve. So the red one is what's known as a standard normal distribution with mean 0 and standard deviation of 1. And they got a few other examples here. So like a -2, so that's shifting, you're shifting the mean off to the side. Sorry, the green one's shifting it off to the side a little bit. But it's also got a smaller standard deviation, or sorry, this is not a standard deviation, it's a variance. Yeah, in this case, it's got a narrower variance, so it's, closer into the middle. This has got a very, very small variance, so a lot of the values are going to be clustered to the mean, whereas the one with a very high variance, has a lot more observations inside of the tails. So there's this really, really helpful tool called the central limit theorem. And basically, this is one of the, you're relying on what are known as large sample properties. But basically, once the numbers get large enough, once you're starting considering different types of averages and things like that, even though the underlying distribution may not be a normal distribution, the averages of them do become a normal distribution. If you guys don't, like, if you are having some trouble with that and you're interested, there is a way that I can simulate that on a computer. So if you want to see exactly how that works, I can probably do it, but I'll wind up making a bunch of Python mistakes. But in any case, this is actually one of the reasons why you're allowed to use the normal distribution a lot more than you think. There can be some cases where I'm just going to take another I'm going to take another distribution just to show you what they look like. So let's go for the gamma distribution. Okay. So you can get something that looks like this. And essentially, if you're calculating an average from these, those averages are going to follow a normal distribution. Again, you have to repeat it a bunch of times over and over again. So this is one of the reasons why you tend to see the normal distribution used a lot, because for a lot of the things that we're interested in, such as calculating the average, ratio that you want to apply to your wish list to be able to get a forecast, as long as you have that first and second moment, it depends. Depending on what you need to do, you may or may not need certain moments, but I'll just say first and second for the sake of the argument. If it has a power law distribution, you can't rely on those existing. And as a result, a lot of the stuff that you want to do in stats, you can't. If it's a log normal distribution, and you're just kind of figuring out what the average is for a whole bunch of different games, then you can actually make an argument for the use of the normal distribution. And the argument I was expecting to hear from people was something along the lines of, do you think that you can use the large sample properties with a sample of 7 games? And the answer, honestly, is probably not. I think there have been some cases where I think there are some cases, like for papers, where they've shown that you can get, essentially things start behaving like large data sets once they have 20 observations, but 7 is pretty limited. And the challenge here, right, is that I only have a certain number of games. So I'm doing the best with what I can. But I guess the big problem here is that, if someone were to say, right, are you really allowed to do this with 7? I'm like, no, but the other thing is that's also one of the reasons why the confidence intervals are so large. So one of the ways that you can narrow those confidence intervals is to have more generally to have more observations. Obviously, if they're all over the place, that's going to raise the variance. But general expectation would be that you start seeing those confidence intervals narrow. And one of the reasons, incidentally, why you saw the numbers get so large from like the 1 to or the 68 to the 95% confidence interval is that like the range, you're kind of covering like these possibilities in the 68% confidence interval, right? So there's a fair number of observations inside of that, but there's also still a whole lot of the like unusual ones that are covered. When you're doing the 95, like you're kind of covering this whole area. So if you want to cover like 95% of the area under this curve, you actually have to start going out really far, because you start getting increasingly rare events inside of it. There's also a lot of ways to misinterpret the confidence interval. So like the confidence interval is not a probability. Either something is or is not in the confidence interval. I think the way I describe it in the technical appendix is to basically say that, we have 100 parallel dimensions in which Dwarf Fortress is released. And if we use the 68% confidence interval and we observe those parallel dimensions, 68 of those will have a number that's within that confidence interval, and the rest of them will be outside of it. Whereas if we have the 95% confidence interval, we'd expect only 5 of those to go in. Parallel dimensions is like, I feel like I can get away with that for a gaming audience. Obviously, if I was talking to a group of economists, they would kind of roll their eyes and tell me I'm an idiot. But hopefully you get the idea, right? Like it's, we have one state of the world. Either Dwarf Fortress is going to be within that confidence interval, or it is not going to be within that confidence interval. There is no like probability of it being inside of that confidence interval. And I think so I don't know Bayesian statistics all that well. So some people might say, no, it's, your anticipated, value inside of it, whatever, go read Nate Silver or something. I I can only go with how I was trained, right? Um, but yeah, so like essentially what you're looking at here, like the reason why the numbers explode when you see the 95 is just it's really taking the it's really kind of covering all but the most exceptional events. And this is one of the reasons why, like, when you hear about statistical significance, generally they're talking about like observations that are sort of in these little areas. And so this is evidence that you've seen something so unusual that you reject whatever hypothesis you had going in, because what you saw was so unusual. And, you know, you can do, you know, 99% confidence. Physics, you know, will usually go several standard deviations over, not just two. You know, social sciences, you have to deal with humans, which are considerably less well behaved than, you know, than particles. And so as a result, you have, you know, you do what you can, right? You don't want to throw out useful results because you want to hit some like Six Sigma standard or something. I guess Six Sigma is like a management philosophy, but high school physics. Take this perfectly spherical cow. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, right? Like, I'm making the spherical cow assumptions all over the place in this thing, right? You know, you work with what you've been given. So, like, again, I'm at the very start saying, let's assume that we can forecast based on wish lists. How well do wish list based forecasts go? And at least among the 7 games that are considered in this case, the answer is not very well. So then, I mean, to me, the conclusion then is maybe let's find another way to forecast. Other people will be like, hey, this is the ratio we want to use. Let's backcast instead. And then that just makes me very sad. But sorry, I'm really beating this point to death, so I should probably move on. But yeah, in any case, hopefully that will give a little more... Okay, actually, I'll put it this way. I'm probably done talking about the Dwarf Fortress stuff unless you want me to talk more about it. But was that interesting? I think this is a great forecast and that we can learn from it after the numbers come out. Yeah, no, that's the point. Like, this, you know, I wanted to do confidence intervals. I wanted to make sure that it explained how it was doing the thing that it was doing. I was very clear with Tanya, don't base a business decision off of this. This is more for curiosity. Clearly, if Dwarf Fortress comes out and the forecast actually fits pretty well, I mean, obviously I can just say, yeah, you know, look at the 95% confidence interval. It fell within that, right? You know, if this actually works well, I'm going to be interested, and maybe we will start looking into, you know, maybe we'll take a look in terms of seeing, you know, maybe there is a better way of using wish lists, and that maybe I shouldn't be so dismissive of it. But I don't know, like I just look at a 50% error rate and I say, I wouldn't accept that somewhere else. So why should I accept that here? Other than the fact that maybe it is more helpful to have, you know, to have some kind of a forecast rather than none. Found it fascinating. The deep terminology was a bit beyond me, but it absolutely added to the needed context for the explanation. Well, thank you, Woban. If you want, I can do my best to try and explain some of the other concepts, because I know I went through some of them pretty quickly. I make an effort to explain some of this stuff in the technical appendix, which is about twice as long as the original article. But I don't know. I don't know if it'll be that helpful. The other bit of data news for me. So again, like we'll see. Like the only thing, like I said, the only thing that I feel bad about on this one is that I am in sort of a no-win situation, in that if the forecast turns out to be right, nobody's going to say, oh, what a good thing. What a smart man this man is. And again, I don't necessarily think it's going to be correct. And in the end, I'm going to feel very bad for the Adams brothers, and I'm going to feel very bad for Kit Fox, because I think Dwarf Fortress deserves a very, very successful release. Whereas if I'm wrong, you know, obviously everybody's going to enjoy talking about, bah, look at this idiot. How dare he get it wrong? And it's like, but this is not creating the right set of incentives. One of the reasons why I wanted to do it this way is that I have absolutely nothing to lose. Nobody pays me for game analysis. So, the worst that can happen to me is people ignore me. Well, that's kind of already, that's kind of already happening, right? So, like in this case here, I don't have some kind of livelihood as a consultant or something to worry about if I get it wrong. So, in this case here, I think it is important to be a little bit more upfront about how you're calculating things, to communicate the uncertainty of certain measures, and to to be able to basically, I think if we create a situation in which forecasters are afraid to go outside of consensus views, then we're crippling our ability to analyze data. And ultimately, all that you're going to get is a bunch of people who are moving towards safe forecasts. And the thing is, it's actually really hard to get out of that, because essentially, when you have this massive kind of consensus views and it's wrong, people don't say, hey, maybe we're doing something foolish here. People are going to say, well, everybody else was saying this, so how could I have known differently? And, at that point, we don't learn. And this is just because, so you can get your internet points making fun of someone, or, because nobody wants to be the person who hired the person who got it wrong. You've created an incentive for people not to sort of follow the analysis where it will take them. But again, just to be clear, like, this thing is presented so that I can get the feedback in terms of where the method is wrong. Because I think the big problem with this is that people are doing a variation of this, except that they have fewer games than Kitfox Games is released. And because people are only reporting their point estimates of what the ratio should be, this is why you're seeing those numbers shift all over the place. If we had confidence intervals, we'd actually be able to say, like, are these things... Actually, it's better if you just report a variance, then you can do like a t-test between the two of them. But, the thing is that the people who are doing that, like, if you're running a studio, you've got 100 other things on your plate. You don't have time to think about this sort of stuff. So I'm trying to lead by example. Cree says, an estimate is an estimate and shouldn't be taken for gospel. To be fair, if it does result in an accurate estimate, Kitfox will probably most definitely use it in the future. And if your estimate's 100% every time, you're not estimating, you're psychic. Yeah. Okay, on to lighter news. So like I said, the one thing that's a little depressing is that it's a no-win situation for me. But there was also something really nice that Victoria posted. So this is her GDC talk. Oops, sorry. That link is actually queued up to what I've got here, but if you want to see the full talk. So this is the social media deep dive on Among Us. So...
All right, so this is another chart. Shout out to System Shock on Twitter for this, who is an amazing economist and really helped me out with this. We plotted this Among Us data on a graph that measures engagement and found that overall engagement percentage doesn't actually really shift based on the video length. So if you consider success to be people watching to the end of something, then shorter videos are better. But we didn't really see anything that indicated longer videos were hurting engagement measures. We also did a plot for length and views, and while it does show a negative trend, it's not a very strong relationship. I'm not saying completely irrelevant, because the 3 longest videos are also the bottom 3 for views, and the TikTok algorithm does reward videos that get rewatched over and over. But it's fair to say that at least part of the connection is that we just have more success in the short video club. None of this really counts as a breakthrough, by the way, or anything really, especially considering, how small our sample size is with the Among Us account. But as in like the number of videos we have. But we were just curious about the length and was a little surprised to see how stable the engagement measure was, no matter how long the video was. And this is what it looks like for Among Us, but it's possible this graph might look different for other game audiences. As with any content, things really vary from game to game. And
so this is a good talk, which I highly encourage you to check out, but this is not a channel for showing other people's stuff. I did just want to take a quick second to say thank you to the VTran for giving me a little pick me up in the morning. And actually, she started the morning not just with this, but a nice little, hey, I loved your Dwarf Fortress article. And for those of you who are looking forward to the Game Awards, you may notice a little statue there. So yeah, this is definitely so. Maybe what I will do, I think it's pretty clear for most people. Like, it's worth noting that like TikTok is all the rage now among game developers, and I mean, like, obviously it's a really popular social platform, but I do feel like Victoria should get some well-deserved credit for kind of really innovating in this space. She definitely seemed to be, if not the first, certainly the most high-profile person showing what TikTok can do in terms of getting a community excited and engaged for your game. And, like, she's quite humble about what she's done. It is fair to say, obviously she moved into the Among Us account. She created the Twitter account for it. She created the TikTok account for it. But Among Us was already a very successful game. But it's also fair to say that, she did establish herself on TikTok before that. I'm pretty sure she had done TikTok for Kitfox as well. So while I think it's good that she is talking about how she's, inherited this very successful game, I also think that, like, if it was easy to just make it on TikTok by showing up, there would be, the landscape for community managers and marketers would be very different. So essentially, what was I can't even remember what the outcome was. Maybe she's got it. I might still have the... Oh, right. So I think the engagement measure was likes, comments, and shares. And then I think viewership. Hang on a second. This probably is more clear in the context of her presentation, but I'm going to take a second here to see if I can find the email. I'm not going to read the email to you, but I'm curious now. Oh, right. This might have been Discord. Okay. I'm going to give this one more shot, and if I can't find it, I'll just move on. I found it. I can't believe this. Okay. Sorry, I'm just going to screen this to make sure I don't have anything that's like... Okay, cool. No, this part is totally safe to share. And apologies. First of all, Victoria, what are you doing watching my crappy channel? If you hear this, if you don't want me doing something like this in the future, please let me know. This is a super long message, by the way. So, all right, this is the back of the napkin. Oh. All right, this is a back of the napkin style, but I wanted to test something. The x-axis, horizontal, is my timing of your videos using a stopwatch. And because my name is John Gamerson, obviously my reflexes are God tier, and there is 100% no chance that I made any mistakes at all. The y-axis, vertical, is the outcome of interest because I was too lazy to make two charts, something that really came back to bite me when this wound up in a GDC talk. So, in this case, blue is engagement and red is watching the full video. The lines are trend lines. If you had to run a regression in sociology, that's basically it, except Google's doing the work for us now. Because obviously you need hardcore data to understand this. There is a negative association between video length and the percentage of people who watch the video. Mind-blowing, I know. Okay, so my sarcasm aside, I have at least the information that I need to talk about this graph again. So basically, here's the idea. If you think, so on YouTube, one of the ways that you know you're going to get more... one of the ways that you know you're going to get more people, your video is going to wind up recommended to more people is the more of your video gets watched. And this is pretty intuitive, right? YouTube wants people to stay on YouTube watching ads or buying the service that removes those ads. And so there is a lot of attention that goes into making content that has a very high rate of engagement. I can actually show you what that looks like on some of my own YouTube videos if you are interested, because Google does provide that information to you. But the thing that's important to remember, right, is that, so why do you want the full duration to work? Why do you want, the maximum viewership of a video to the end? Well, you do that because you want people engaging with your content. You want a higher number of views. You want a higher number of people, following your channel or liking it or sharing it or whatever. But we don't need to guess as to those outcomes. We can plot it. We have the engagement numbers. They're in, her previous slide. So what I did here, the first thing that I did was just to say, it's like, okay, so we're going to time the length of the video, and then we're going to take a look when you're looking at the red dots, how much did someone, how long did someone watch? Well, again, it's not mind-blowing to know that the longer the video, the more of a drop-off there is in terms of people's, attention. If you've got a video that lasts a minute and you're used to being on a site that shows you 10-second videos, you're going to have the time and inclination to skip unless you're really committed to that idea. But again, remembering that these things are about the engagement metrics, you want people doing things to your videos. The next question that you'll say is the fact that the video is going longer, is that causing the the video to perform poorly? And in this case, no. This is almost flat as the prairie horizon. Flat like the taxes should be. I don't actually think that. In this case here, even the longer videos, didn't really seem to. It didn't seem to do all that bad as far as if what you care about is the number of likes you get on a video, there isn't any evidence, at least, that the length hurt the videos. Now, there are some other things that you can, there are other ways of cutting this that might maybe make a suggestion that there is a negative correlation between some of the outcomes that you want for your video and the length. This isn't the last word, but I remember specifically when she asked me if she could use this in the GDC talk, and I was like, oh, that was really just intended to be a casual little thing to help clarify some work that you did. But I was like, it would be really mean of me to say, no, you can't use that. So there it is. My name is forever associated with graphs with weird axis names. Woban asks, is when do people hit like or share in an X-length video a metric you get? I do not believe they do that. However, it is also worth remembering that I'm a very, very small YouTuber. So it may be that, like, I would be surprised if YouTube does this. But maybe if you were to hit a certain level of activity, they would give you a bit of a, they'd give you a bit of an indicator in terms of when those events are going on. You will notice that at some point they did add
percent.
Oh, I thought they added. Maybe this is too new. Do they not show viewership information anymore? $1,000 views. Interesting. Let's go for... Trying to find something. Oh, yeah, 5 years is good. Yeah, so what you can see here, right, is you get these densities of where people are watching the most. So for whatever reason, people are skipping at like the 7-minute mark, and then they sort of move and they take a look at the 41-minute mark, and the rest just sort of it's just sort of flat. What's another type of video that I can look for? Give me a quick second here. Yeah, this will work a bit better. Nope, it's here. So this is also kind of nice because it's widescreen, so there's this nice black area. But you'll notice, like, not a lot of volatility, but for whatever reason, people are really moving. For whatever reason, they're kind of going near the end. Now, it may be there's a couple of lines that I really like that definitely appear later on in the series. So it may be why they're looking for is why they're looking for these. If you've not seen HBO's Rome, I really like that series. And the newsreader is played by an actor named Ian McNeice. And he's just got some of these great, like, one of my favorites is he, at a certain point, he winds up having the advertisement at the end of the, at the end of each of his nudes, brought to you by the Guild of Millers. Guild of Millers uses only the finest flour, true Roman bread for true Romans. And for whatever reason, I try to add that into just about every single time, every single, I don't know, ad reference that I can work in. Have any of you seen this series out of curiosity? Because there is one fun historical detail. Do I watch Critical Role? No, I don't, but there is a Critical Role fan in the chat who may want to out themselves. I didn't want to point you out, Cree, but yes, we do have a Critical Role fan inside of chat. You feel free to make the point you were going to make, Woban, if you're interested. You're thinking of EXU's one shot with Sam's Bard. Okay, so Cree might be able to translate for me, but I'm not familiar enough for that to make sense to me. But I'm guessing there's no Rome fans in the chat. That's a shame. You're all fired. Okay, sorry. I'm taking a quick second to get myself sorted out. I'm happy to do some games if you're interested. I know it's a really, really thin crowd right now. So if you want me to talk about some data stuff, I can do that. If you want me to play some games, I can do that. We can make it a short chat. Just call it a night. I'm sort of happy to do whatever, but I wanted to give it a second. His last broadcast was epic and included an ad. Oh, sorry. He added in advertisement as part of his normal broadcasts, and his last broadcast was epic and included. Okay, that is actually really, really fun. So I have a little bit of a dilemma as far as games are concerned. I definitely needed a break tonight, and you've all been wonderful in terms of the city is about to be destroyed by the forces of evil, but make sure to shop at Wondrous Wally's Store of Wonder. I actually wonder if I can see. I'm not gonna play the clips because I know copyright stuff is getting real on Twitter. But what do we do? These are so not the Drew's Reader. God, I hate Bing. I realize silence over a still image is the height of entertaining comment. Height of Twitch entertainment. I have found at least one of the lines that I wanted. I was just hoping I could get a longer one. Yeah, there was hackers, and then somebody put up the Fast and the Furious when the what was it? The sorry, words fail me. They put up Fast and the Furious when the site was acquired by the annoying car guy. Yeah, so I don't. WikiQuote kind of came through, but it doesn't really have a lot. So from Unnecessary Fiction, the 8th episode, from pliant virgins to learned Greeks, Rufus has slaves for every budget. And the first of the advertisements in Egeria, season 1, episode 6. This month's public bread is provided by the Capitoline Brotherhood of Millers. The Brotherhood uses only the finest flour, true Roman bread for true Romans. Vanguard Master, we just went through my Dwarf Fortress forecasts, so I am sorry you missed that because that might be of interest, but I will give you the link. It is not a 13-minute read, by the way. It is the full article. I'd recommend reading Tanya's editor's note, but this is the full length. But if you want to know how I did this is the breakdown of how it went. And at the moment, I'm trying to sort out what I do with the rest of the evening. So, incidentally, do take a Please don't just pay attention to my stuff on there. I actually quite liked Tanya's article on messy design, the shaggy, the baggy, and the craggy. So there's good stuff there. Just because some data nerd every once in a while will bug KitFox and say, "Pay attention to me." Doesn't mean that you can't educate yourself on the things that actually matter for games. Because the thing about the data is, right, like if you don't have a good game, if you don't have something that is worth experiencing, then there isn't really a whole lot of value in, like, what does it really matter for the like the marketing strategy? Well, I guess maybe it does in terms of getting your money back, but like obviously the first priority should be realizing the thing you have inside of you, and the data is a tool to sort of help make that stuff happen. So I'm happy to discuss more stuff. Like there are some data things I can do, but it's really more about learning. Oh, got a notification. Thank you, Roxanne. Probably shouldn't be reading notifications in the middle of the stream, as long as you don't send me something really terrible. But what I think I am going to do is I'll show you the reason why I've been having some difficulty deciding on things. It's because with this new computer, well, upgraded computer, I wanted to try and keep the games that I have installed sort of narrow so that I can make it easier to pick stuff. That's actually really good for me on it's really good for me in terms of playing something on my own time. But in terms of streaming, if I want to take it easy, it's actually a little bit more difficult because some of this stuff that I basically just haven't been playing. So what I've got on the EA app right now is Command & Conquer Remastered, The Sinking City, and 2 Point Hospital. On Game Pass, I currently have Dune Spice Wars, which I haven't played. I might have installed Grounded for someone who, again, can identify themselves in chat if they want. I've actually been playing a lot of the Microsoft Solitaire collection recently. I did install Skyrim. I haven't touched it. Warhammer 3, and then I just recently started playing Dire Tide. I had a pretty good time the first time I did it. On Ubisoft Connect, I've got The Division 2 and Anno 1800, which I don't really think is going to set anyone on fire. I do have Cyberpunk. On Epic, I've got Total War Troy. I definitely don't mind doing Troy. Disco Elysium, Industries of Titan, Phantom Brigade, and Phoenix Point. Again, don't mind doing any of these. These are obviously ones that I normally do on Wednesday. And then finally on Steam, I've got Chaos Reborn, Cultist Simulator, XCOM 2, Borderlands 2, Divinity Original Sin, Pillars of Eternity, Civilization 6, TIS 100. Oh, did I not put Exapunks on? Shame on me. Against the Storm, Cultist Simulator. Although I can't mess with that one because that'll mess up my YouTube videos. Godless, Grand Theft Auto 5, Imperium's Shrouded Isle, Terra Invicta. And obviously I can try installing something if you want to see me play something a lot. But if people are... you've never seen me play Total War Warhammer? Yeah, so I mean, I guess this is the question. Like, I'll be honest with you, I would be more interested in doing Troy than Total War Warhammer. But if... I'm not sure which certainly is Algren's, but hi, by the way. I'm happy to try Grounded. In fact, I'm happy to do, Grounded with anybody who has it if we want to do spend some time on that tonight. Although I don't want to drag people out because this is obviously, time for me to be entertaining other people, not trying to rope people in. But I don't know. I kind of feel like because it's a looser night and we're already almost 2 hours in. I'm not going to have a lot of time because it's already 11 o'clock and I do have some stuff that I need to get through. But for an hour or two or that, I'm happy if we can get a consensus inside of chat. And obviously, if I wind up disappointing people, this just gives me more fuel in terms of some more fuel in terms of what to do in the future. So at least what I'm seeing inside of chat, would it be fair to say that Darktide, Grounded, and Troy are 3 that people are interested in seeing? So I should say Darktide, Grounded, Troy / Warhammer, because I don't mind doing Warhammer. Just I've started a Troy game, so okay. Now I do know that Grounded is something that we can play with people. So if people had Grounded and wanted to play it, would that make that a higher wish or lower wish? Because obviously, if people want to play Grounded, we can also just do that on our own time. I'm slightly inclined toward. We can also say that for Darktide, I suppose, but I don't know how that performs on when I'm streaming. And then the other option is my slight inclination is actually to finish off with Troy, because I already have a game on the go. But if people are interested in down to watch later or anything, okay. Yeah, so Algrins, one thing you may find helpful is that I automatically applied RTX to a lot of the ray tracing and stuff like that, but I actually found if I did a better division between RTX and other factors, my performance boosted quite a bit. But I will say that Diretide, or is it Diretide or Darktide? It's definitely one that I feel probably maybe needed a little bit more time on optimization. Darktide. Okay, my bad. Okay, I'm slightly inclined towards Troy then. Is everyone okay with that? Yeah, no, the first game I played for Darktide was it crashed twice, and then I just gave up. I'm surprised none of you said you wanted to see Disco Elysium. That made me happy because, like, if I started Disco Elysium and then never played it again, I think people would be really mad at me. I like Vermintide. I find it hard to like find people to play with, which is a problem, but okay, so there we go.
So it has come to this. Good men, torn from their kin, to rage and spill the blood of other men's foes. But we will not be forgotten.
His name was Troy. He looks like a Troy.
Our deeds shall be known, even when our bones are dust scattered on the wind. And our names will inspire the mighty to rise.
I also don't know where Homer comes into this. It's no Simpsons references I see, at least. So I'm pretty sure it was Diomedes. Do any of you remember? Was I playing Thea or Argos? His name is Troy Total War. I could just start from the beginning. I guess I was doing... Was I doing Thea? You thought it was Argos too? Okay. No, hang on. I lost all my save. That's why. Okay, we're gonna do a new save then. Happy to do Diomedes as Argos, or I can do... Okay, does anybody have a favorite character? We've got Achilles, Odysseus, Agamemnon, Menelaus, which always allows me to say Rock Me Menelaus, Ajax, and Diomedes. The Trojans, we've got Hector, Paris, Aeneas, Sarpedon, Rheus, and Memnon. And then there are also the Amazons, never played as the Amazons, Hippolyta and, is it Penthelia? Vanguard likes Odysseus. I'm actually not too good with Odysseus, but I can give it a shot.
My journey is long.
That's all good. Just call him Ulysses. Yeah, if anybody doesn't object to Odysseus, I can try and learn some new things. So the faction bonuses for Odysseus: safe havens, unique agent actions. Spies can construct a safe haven buildings in foreign settlements. Heroes can recruit units in regions with safe haven buildings. Safe haven building types depend on the existing military buildings present in your own settlements. Coastal mastery, unique buildings available for construction that surpass those of other factions. You can build them in coastal settlements only. You can only upgrade the main building in landlocked settlements. Recommended playstyle. Odysseus' roster is focused on stealthy, fast-moving units, which can be best utilized for outflanking and rear charges, while the main line is strong enough to hold the enemy. And hero, shrewd and resourceful Odysseus, ruler of Ithaca, was a brilliant diplomat and a trusted advisor to the kings of Achaea. In the Iliad, Lord Agamemnon, in his hour of need, beseeched him to convince Achilles to rejoin the war effort. A wise, battle-hardened commander who believed that the path to victory lay in stealth rather than in direct confrontation, he is said to have been the mastermind behind the Trojan horse, an ingenious stratagem that led to the downfall of the great city. Formidable combatant in his own right, Odysseus nevertheless preferred to employ subterfuge and guerrilla tactics to defeat his opponents. He fired at his enemies from afar, wielding a mighty bow that only he could string. He was also renowned as an accomplished seaman and a key naval strategist. The Ithacan general's 10-year journey at sea following his victory against Troy is the subject of Homer's second epic poem, The Odyssey. And Son of Laertes and Anticlea, plus 12% to campaign movement range at sea, and plus 5 morale when fighting at sea. Okay, so I think I'm locked into Odysseus. Let's see if we can make this work. Sail away.
Are we mere playthings of the gods? Or do we plead divine influence to justify our foolish choices?
He's taken her! He's taken my wife! You've risked the safety of Troy.
Troy is my home now.
You have my oath, brother. She will be returned to you. Brother, I can fight.
Go, seek shelter. There'll be plenty of fighting ahead.
Helen's flight was a grave wound to Achaean pride. King Menelaus will have his revenge. And his brother will have his war with Troy, just as the gods intended.
From the island Cephallenia, shrewd Odysseus, king of Ithaca, contemplates his deadly war that is to come. I'll share what Vanguard Master just sent me, if that's okay. Just give me a second here. I don't want to share the rest of the DMs. Odysseus, we now set out on our odyssey. Sailor, raising hand. What's an odyssey? Odysseus, a long journey named after the only survivor. Oh, okay. Wait, what?
O silver-tongued Odysseus, there is only one response to Queen Helen's abduction, and that is war.
Paris of Troy must pay!
King Agamemnon of high-walled Mycenae must avenge this insult to his brother.
Troy thinks to slight me, but they will pay the price.
You are king of Ithaca, and the master of deception. Wise and resourceful. Great heroes like Achilles himself will take heed of your counsel. Each of Helen's original suitors must decide whether to honor their oath, calling on them to defend Helen's husband.
The wild, dark sea lures me from my home.
The Teleburns, once obedient to the kings of Ithaca, are now trying their fortune as sea raiders. You need to put an end to their lawless ambitions.
Thank you for 2 years, Chunky Man Gamer. I'm
Choose
sorry you
your
didn't get the
allies
full
wisely,
sub
and
video, though.
confront your enemies without fear.
There is actually one thing I want to take a quick look for. I have my pre-Socratics reader somewhere, and there is an essay that might be interesting related to the Iliad. So just give me a quick second and see if I can find it fast. If I can't, then I'll just run straight. Well, that's a shame. I obviously have used this recently because it's not with the book that it's normally by, but I don't think I'm going to be able to find it. Sorry, there's one last thing I can check, actually. All right, I am absolutely lost. I could probably find it somewhere else, but let's get on with the game. Okay, safe havens. Agents of the wily Odysseus can sneak into foreign settlements and, unbeknownst to their owner, enable the construction of safe haven buildings inside. Ithacan warriors flock in secret to these buildings, ready to be recruited if their lord needs them. So I've always struggled to see how this is like a major advantage, and it might just reflect my lack of ability in Total War. And then coastal mastery. The people of Ithaca display a natural affinity towards the sea. Their coastal settlements can become far more developed than those of other factions, but their landlocked territory will be characteristically lackluster, which feels like more of a defect than anything. But okay, objectives. Defeat an army belonging to the faction the Teleboans. The treacherous Teleboans have advanced with their forces, which now threaten your lands and the livelihood of your people. March out with your army and defeat them in battle. Armies are used to defend home cities and to attack enemy cities and armies. Armies may be selected by left-clicking and right-clicking to move or attack with a selected army. So, seems to me like we do effectively the tutorial battle.
Show no fear.
We're attacking the Teleboans. So, and we're godless. So, range on range. Pretty straightforward group here. So we've got a militia. They're expendable and shielded. The Islanders are not expendable, so they're slightly better than the militia, but not considerably better. Young Spears, so they are, I actually tend to like using these. They are somewhat dangerous, and these are exactly the sort of people I want to be ripping up with my ambushers. The catch is that the range on these things are not as good as the slingers. But then the other bit of good news is that I have a lot of people with shields, so we can probably just run them in. Moving on. Heavy sword skirmishers, special missile weapon, okay, light swift-footed. Yeah, so we don't really have anything expendable. Oh, that's right, stock is gonna be able to keep them hard to see. We'll see how this turns out. Again, this is intended to be something that teaches me how to play the game rather than be the hardest battle, so maybe we can learn something about how... Oh, man. This might actually work well for my ranged units, actually. So almost everything in my army has Vanguard deployment, which is fun. So I kind of want to put the ambushers inside here. The catch is that I think it's a little too close to the enemy units. So silent yet deadly, this unit can move while hidden in any terrain. Oh. I don't know. I think I'm still gonna put them back here just in case, because we'll have the chance to sort of move around the edge anyway.
Odysseus! I can and will.
I don't believe there's a reinforcement timer like in the new Warhammer, no. It wouldn't matter in this battle anyway because there's no reinforcements, but Alright, so I suppose the catch here is that nobody can see us in the fog, and it's not... I guess it's not clear whether or not the... I guess we don't know whether or not they're going to be coming after us, so I probably should have thought this through a little bit better. So we'll advance...
All right. Sons of Achaea! Yes! Move up! To victory! Halt! Ready to serve! To war!
Okay, so this is unfortunate for me just because I was relying on the element of surprise. But maybe we can still use this fog to my advantage. I don't want to get trapped in the mud like this, so... I really like the soundtrack for this, incidentally.
For the Achaeans!
So it's almost certain they're all just going to be hiding inside the trees there, which is fine, but I want to make sure that I've got the units to be able to support that. So the part that sort of... I guess the part that made this work differently than what I was expecting is that the fogs worked too well, and so instead of using their ranged advantage, they're sort of hiding in the woods now, which... I mean, obviously, my ambushers are not really going to be able to do a whole lot of that, which is fine, because, like, it's not like I need a lot of armor piercing. But it does mean I sort of need to chase them down, and if I need to chase them down, it makes it a little bit harder to do the, the mad ambushes that I was planning on setting up. But we'll make it work. Okay, let's move them into the woods. Keep these guys back. My preference would be to have them right here, but I don't know how well this stock works. It's the one drawback of actually playing Total War rather than watching it, is you don't get a chance to see all the fancy models. Okay, so... Hey, get back there. What are you doing?
Your warriors have spotted hidden
What on
foes.
earth? I must have screwed something up. Okay, that's not quite how I wanted it to go, but we'll make this work.
Destroy the foe!
Victory is close enough to taste.
So these guys just got pounded by the combination of the young spears and the militia. I would not be surprised. Yeah, they're running. So I can only partly blame that on the earlier screw up. I might actually just do a rematch to see if I can handle this a little bit better.
Foes beware! Swords! Sons of Achaea! Slay them! I won't hold back!
The foe has sighted your hidden units.
Should still be focusing on the young spears.
Make your peace now! You don't wipe them out!
Your warriors are rallying.
So I'll fast forward it in case there isn't a rematch option. Having a little trouble finding the guy, apparently.
This battle is your last of war! Sons of Achaea! Let them! Hungry for glory! Attack! Massacre them! To battle! Go at them! I'm going to spill your innards!
Hades has claimed the enemy hero.
Yeah, I'll do the rematch on this just because I'm not really happy with what happened. So, like, again, I can't entirely blame it on the fact that everybody seemed to be going the opposite direction, but that really did mess me up. I'm also going to wait. I'm curious to see if this turns out differently if I make my people a lot more visible. So, based on the original plan, I was going to put my ambushers here. I was going to set up these units in the wood. Okay, that's clearly not happening.
At your command.
I'm going to set my heavier units here.
I can.
And then let them just sort of come to me. But it seems like we're still in the same problem where they just stay inside the woods. So fair enough. In this case, we'll move up. Arguably here, this tells us that the doing it the old way with the fog would be better, because that's going to mean that we don't get
Masters of war.
that's going to mean that we don't get affected by the
Making it happen.
or they're not going to be able to have the same range that they did before. But I made my choice. I'm going to live with it. I'm also kind of curious why they make the unit speed running as the default. Oh. So why are they running back? Maybe it's just a signal to me that they... I really wish they weren't going over the muddy ground for this. Let's
Making it happen.
should be moving these guys at this point. So these guys are going to arrive a little too early, which is the problem we had last time. So yeah, they're moving the slingers in position, which... Again, we can accept some losses, but we don't want to get too... We don't want to get too reckless.
The foe has sighted your hidden units.
Odysseus. Masters of war.
and ready!
Odysseus! Attack! Your end approaches! Sons of Achaea!
Your hero is under attack.
So this is definitely not a pairing that I want. In this case, we're going to wind up losing the, getting some heavy hits on the Islanders anyway. Oddly enough, the fact they broke early might actually be one of the things that saves them from some
Victory
tough
is
hits.
close enough to taste.
So unless I can get the army together a lot faster than I did before, this was just ill-conceived from the start.
At your command!
Foes beware! Go at them!
Foes beware!
Foes beware! At your command! Onward!
We'll probably wind up killing them a lot
By
more, though.
Ares, your warriors are rallying.
Attack! Massacre!
Should probably stop the ass kicking Odysseus is getting right now.
Ready to serve!
Surely they should be. Okay, I don't think they were doing their thing.
Train and ready! Destroy the foe!
So same result. I just think we lost fewer or we still have more Islanders at the end of this, but probably it's pretty clear here that the losses that I took at the start were because of bad decisions I was making, not because of the fact that I turned everyone around.
Unleash havoc! Let battle commence!
Ready to serve! Forward we go!
Trained and ready! Odysseus!
Hades has claimed the enemy hero.
That was good news.
One of your units has no more ammunition.
I believe I just wiped out my Islanders with my own ranged weapon, so I cannot believe it, but I'm going to do this a third time. Sorry to do this.
Athena, guard me! Masters of war! Yes! Odysseus! We're set then. So be it! Now we'll see! Absolutely! I will do it!
So, slightly different approach than last time. In this case, I'm just bringing the full force. They're going to come in, and I'm going to let my ambushers do their thing at the side here. I'm going to turn off fire at will. So they can't be seen right now. But I basically don't want to lose that advantage until it looks like they're ready to move. Okay, now I blew it.
The foe has sighted your hidden units.
So I'm actually not that worried about this because we should still be able to outrun them.
Odysseus!
But I do want to get in position.
Ready to serve! Trained
and ready. To war.
Actually, I think the story with the skirmishers might be...
Odysseus.
Okay, yeah, they are committing to fight me.
Foes beware. Odysseus. It will happen. I'm ready.
Ah! Stop!
With Athena's blessing. I can. Awaiting order. Bonicians! Let's see blood! Wipe them out! Strike hard!
Your hero is under attack.
Alright, these guys just got screwed.
Don't hold back! Go at them! Trained and ready!
Ah, so the young spears are actually a little bit faster. That's not good for my range units.
Victory is close enough to taste.
Sons of Achaea! Pour out! Massacre them! To glory! At your command!
I mean, it did work out for me. I don't exactly want to have these units... I don't exactly want to be losing these units, but...
Forward we go!
it is really convenient to have the enemy army divided this way.
Hungry for glory! Sons of Achaea!
By Ares, your warriors are rallying.
Okay, so we're going to use this as a chance to throw some things at the enemy.
Awaiting orders! To glory! Slay them! At your command!
Run faster!
Masters are
Hades has claimed the enemy hero.
I dispatch you! Ready! Wreak havoc! Attack! Odysseus!
Awaiting orders.
Combat ready! Combat ready! Moving up!
Oh, that sucks. That's what I get for turning off the skirmish.
Hungry for glory!
One of your units has no more ammunition.
To battle!
Alright, that was a mess, but...
Onward, warriors.
and I gotta turn off...
Ready to throw. Massacre them.
It shall be!
So I don't want to wipe out my units like I did last time.
Odysseus! At them!
Just stand in the mud, that'll make you feel better. Okay, that's as good as I'm gonna get it, clearly. 53 is not the sort of thing I should cry about, but probably good for me to learn how on earth I'm supposed to be sneaky like Odysseus, because clearly that is not my style.
Hard work wins renown.
Okay. Maintain 12 units in total. We'll definitely not get that. We want to move on the city as soon as we can, but I don't believe we're going to be able to do that this turn.
Odysseus of Ithaca.
Well, I can shut up.
Hold nothing back.
Oh, even. Okay. So, very similar. So one of the things I'm going to want to deal with as early as I can is clearing out these Achaean slingers. And the young spears may actually be something that that causes me some grief. So I am going to fight the battle. I think because it's a settlement battle, I'm probably not going to have quite the same opportunities for being sneaky. We'll see. Yes. So normally for this map, I think the AI sort of deploys here. I'm going to set them up here. We'll put the main force here.
Odysseus, ready for battle.
Okay, I really don't know why it's accelerating me forward like that, but it's very irritating.
The foe has sighted your hidden units.
Crap! Deja vu.
For Ithaca. I'm ready. We're beyond words now. Onward, warriors. Attack!
Okay, we're gonna chop up their
Go at them! Go at them!
Forward march for the Achaeans! Let's see
Save
blood.
yourself with ill
At your command! Ready to serve!
Okay, you gotta go out and round. So we definitely want to get rid of these slingers as soon as possible.
Odysseus,
Ooh,
awaiting orders.
that's good for us.
Masters of war. Foes beware. Wreak havoc. Odysseus, slay them. Combat ready. Sons of Achaea, destroy the foe. Athena, guard me. Train ready. In good order.
So right now we want to chase the slingers just to stop them from doing the damage. These guys are going to be able to turn around and hit my heavy sword skirmishers in the back soon, but I want to make sure that we've routed most of what we...
Your hero
We
is
can.
under attack.
Okay, now he's in a fight that he probably can't win. So we're going to reinforce him.
Train and ready. Ready to serve.
Awaiting orders!
These guys are way too evenly matched for
Victory
comfort.
is close enough to taste.
Combat ready!
I was not expecting this fight to be so close. The big thing here is we don't need to kill everyone to make this worthwhile. We just need them to leave the battlefield at the same time.
Odysseus,
Masters of war! Swords!
absolutely. Don't falter. Your death is inevitable. For the Achaeans! Strike hard.
God, Odysseus is in trouble.
My time is now. Combat ready. Strike on.
I think I chased people down a little too much.
To victory. Your journey ends here.
Trained and ready!
Is your funeral pyre prepared?
All right, there we go.
I won't hesitate. Odysseus. Foes beware.
We might as well get the kills that we can. Now, I'm not going to be able to heal anyone by sacking the settlement because I don't want the penalty to public order. But we will have at least
One
one
of your
turn of
units has
getting
no more ammunition.
getting better, or of healing. I mean. So yeah, Theseus clearly got the worst of it. In the end, 81 to take on a more numerous force. That's not terrible. Obviously, some of the weaker units, but... Okay. So, again, I could replenish my units, but the problem here is that there's the conquest penalty and also the province instability, so we'll just occupy. Porcrus Spear. It never misses and always returns to its bearer. You'll never leave a spear behind never leave a spear behind inside the foe again. Plus 8% to melee attack of all spear units and minus 10% to the recruitment cost of spear units. Now, as far as my hero's concerned, what's your deal? Okay, so he can equip the spear. I was thinking he'd have to keep his bow, but... So, we have got Lead by Example. Allies in range will get bonuses to melee attack, weapon damage, and melee defense. Or Cheat Hades. This is for himself. He gets bonuses to damage, resistance, and speed. So, if I wind up in a situation like I was there before... this is good for escaping. I think in this case we'll do Lead by Example, and I'll just be a little bit more careful with his health in the future. Moving on, I want to recruit some units. So it's a little tricky for me to decide exactly how I want to build this army. So when I take a look at my options, so the cheap stuff that I can put at the front are the Islanders. So I'm just taking a look here at the costs, right? Because there is gold, but that's not your main currency in this game. Food is going to be deciding what your maintenance is. One of the things I've begun to appreciate about the Total War games is that while you can manage the strategic layer well enough that you can basically field an army of elites like all over the place and just sort of steamroll everyone, part of the elegance is figuring out exactly what you need. And being able to use sort of a mix of sort of lighter units and some of your more precious units. So, when I compare the Islanders to the Sword Skirmishers have more health, more armor, more morale, better melee attack, slightly worse melee defense, considerably more damage, and a better charge bonus. However, they cost 15 more in terms of maintenance. I do note that it doesn't really say that they're a good front line. We have Young Spears, so in this case, poor defense, good charge, weak versus missiles. So the Young Spears also have more health than the Islanders. Better morale, better melee attack, slightly worse melee defense, again, considerably more damage, but not as much as the Sword Skirmishers. There are some damage bonuses versus certain types of units, and considerably better charge bonus. They also are 5 food less to maintain. So I tend to like a lot of Young Spears. I'm going to take a quick look at some of the details on this. So it says, these lightly armored skirmishers harass enemies at range with javelins, then cut their flanks to ribbons with swords. So I guess really it's just the heavy sword skirmishers that I have as a front line.
That works.
Islanders, the Aegeans, most ruthless island raiders, hone their skills at warfare by hunting for the tribe. I don't know. I think we're going to load up on sword skirmishers. I also probably want to get some proper missile units in.
Those who oppose me meet Hades.
Now I've got a spy. Sharpest is the blade that moves in darkness, for shields cannot deflect, which cannot be anticipated. So we'd go for an outrider. Spy scouts ahead of the army, looking out for hidden threats and exposed targets. If I stand passive inside of an enemy region, the spy counters the enemy's espionage. Oh, sorry, I could be wrong here. Counters the enemy espionage efforts, countering their schemes and preventing them from coming to fruition. Reduces the chance of success of all enemies' agents. Okay, yeah, so it is a standing bonus. Own settlement. The spy coordinates the recovery of warriors from injuries sustained in battle so that they may rejoin their armies in return to active service. So I didn't know that I could garrison. How are we doing? This would actually be not bad. So that's going to cost me 400 food. That's a third of my food. But I think we're going to do it.
Talk is not always a liability. It ended as you wished.
Dracomos, our spy, has successfully completed an assignment in the settlement. In a foreign settlement, safe haven, murmurs of sedition, so causes the target garrison to suffer attrition, assassinate a rival, and poison the well. So lots of dirty tricks. I will be using him to sort of scout out territory, but clearly we want to take out this area before anything else. Now, I may want to find a source of stone. No, hang on. I'm already acquiring stone. So either I want to find a source of gold, or I want to make it less expensive to recruit. So let's just see what our resources are in the immediate area. So bronze, wood. Gold's always a tricky one to find, so it's maybe not surprising we... Well, actually, no, there's one in this region here, so probably we'll have to go to war with Ellis, but... yeah, maybe I will focus on recruitment then. So... It's an interesting choice. A shrewd plan. As you contemplate the military campaign that lies before you, your thoughts turn to Troy and its legendary walls, said to have been erected by Poseidon and Apollo themselves. Should you ever find yourself besieging the Trojan capital, you will require more than brute strength to breach its gates. You begin to conceive of a stratagem that might ensure victory with minimal loss of life should your armies ever find themselves before the city's battlements.
This quick-witted agent may build a safe haven in even the most hostile of lands. Send them forth to infiltrate the cities of your rivals.
Wily King Odysseus may send spies to clandestinely establish safe havens in foreign settlements. Once established, facilities may be constructed in a safe haven to allow Odysseus to recruit troops. Learn more about the safe havens mechanic here. This really isn't all that different from what they told me. Once a safe haven is established, it can be upgraded in several ways. These buildings allow for the recruitment of troops and can be upgraded as needed. Odysseus can establish recruitment bases within any allied settlement he discovers. To do so, a spy agent must be sent to act on the target settlement, and the safe haven action must be selected. This, however, worsens Odysseus' diplomatic relations with that settlement's faction. So you've already started issuing a decree. Your people are eager to follow your orders, for it is through your wisdom that they will flourish. Issue a royal decree, and they will be put to work.
Divinely blessed.
So I'm curious what this unit's range is.
That will not work.
Madness! They have to be doing some kind of, like, rush. Anyways, I suspect we will be able to...
I have a plan.
We'll be able to fight them.
Show no fear.
All right, let's think about how we're going to improve our city. So, figure I might as well improve the home first. We also want to start thinking about how I'm going to effectively use the spy. So I suppose the question here is, where do I want to expand next? One option I want to take a look at would be anyone I have bad relations with. So it definitely feels like these are natural targets. But then so are these. As far as Ellis is concerned, we don't necessarily have a fight with them, but they are the most likely source of gold for me. Yeah, so I think I'm going to start sending the agent sort of in this area to see what we can find. I guess the only thing that Homer really told us about was taking these guys on. So I'm not opposed to trying to pick a fight up here, but this sort of seems like a more natural expansion target. Okay, so it's telling me that I've got construction available, but the options aren't really that inspiring. At some point I may want to build a... because these give me light spearmen, which are a helpful unit, I may want to wind up building this, but the question is, do I really want to lose the ability to generate more food? And in this case, the answer is no. This is something I would want to put a little... I don't know. One of these buildings is going to have to... One of these settlements is going to have to go without its sort of top-tier production. So in this case, with the farm, you can build the small apoika and get additional food per turn, especially if you have high influence. There's an equivalent for stone and equivalent for bronze. And in this case, because food is going to be what enables me to field large armies, I don't necessarily want to be messing around with... I don't want to be messing around with my ability to generate food, so I'll probably do it for something like bronze.
Do not neglect the development of your towns and cities, for many benefits accrue from construction at home. Put your carpenters and stonemasons to work.
Buildings constructed when your cities grant benefits to your... Buildings constructed in your cities grant benefits to your faction. More buildings will aid in the development of your kingdom, and with the war effort abroad, it only remains to choose what to construct. Buildings may be constructed in a selected settlement on the province overview plan
No
panel.
kingdom flourishes and endures through military conquest alone. Grow and maintain your settlements through construction. Their resources can then be harnessed to serve the war effort.
Developing a settlement increases the number of buildings that may be constructed within it. Expanding your facilities in this way will greatly improve your ability to defend your borders at home and wage war abroad. A settlement may be developed by upgrading the first building within it, shown on the province overview panel. Growth points earned in the province over time must be spent in order to do this. This is really more about learning the lay of the land. I really don't feel good about upgrading this spot. So this is saying we need more stone, so I think I'm going to wait. I should have tried to upgrade the... I can't remember if I could upgrade the boats or not. Okay, so we got some more stone for that. Yeah, I did upgrade the boathouse. Okay, so I don't have the population surplus. I am, however, going to upgrade the boathouse. I think I'm going to wait... Well, hang on. How long does it take me to get a surplus? 2. So yeah, in this case, I think it's worth it to wait for the Citadel. More importantly... So this doesn't have walls. This is similar to the last the last fight that we had. In fact, it's going to be even more challenging because they've got 2 spear and shield infantry. So these are really high priorities for these ambushers. They have fewer Achaean slingers. The real drawback here is that my heavy sword skirmishers are going to be doing some serious work here. They essentially have 2 frontline units to contend with. The rest of the army, I'm pretty sure my sword skirmishers are going to be able to handle. I am also going to have to give Mentes his space because Odysseus is not in any condition to take them on. So this will definitely be one where I want to try and maneuver a little bit more effectively. But it's also worth remembering that I have the option of sort of throwing spears and running back, throwing spears and running back, which will be a way that I can wear out those, a way that I can wear out this sword and shield infantry. So, let's think about how I want to set up my fight.
At your command! Waiting orders. Hungry for glory!
This could backfire big time on me, but I want to give them a little bit more than they know what to handle.
Odysseus! Masters of war! Masters of war! Combat! Hungry for glory! Sons of Achaea!
That's exactly what I wanted to have happen.
Sons of Achaea! Ready to serve! Hungry for glory! Moving up! For glory! I won't hold back! Good order! Sword! Let's see blood! For the Achaea!
One of your units has no more ammunition.
Okay, that's not good.
To glory! Awaiting orders! Onward, warriors! Forward march! Wreak havoc! Attack!
Your warriors have been routed.
So we're getting pounded here. What I'm hoping to do is redirect these guys from the slingers into these units.
At your command! Let's see blood! Moving up! Attack! Foes beware! This should not take long. You will train them ready!
Your warriors are rallying.
Let's see blood! Wreak
Get out of there, my friends.
Odysseus! At your command! For once, I'm not after conversation. Onward! Destroy the foe! Wreak havoc! Foes beware! Ready to serve! Advance men!
Okay, that's not good.
At your command! Odysseus!
Your warriors are losing heart.
Combat ready! Onward! I smell the stench. Hungry for glory! Ready to serve!
I think we're gonna lose these guys.
Foes beware! Strike true! For the Achaeans! Hungry for glory! Awaiting orders! I can smell your wreak havoc!
Okay, this is actually working out a little bit better than I was thinking.
Combat ready!
We need somebody to nail these guys, though.
I hope you're not expecting mercy. I advise combat ready. Sons of Achaea. For the Achaeans! Trained and ready.
The foe has sighted your hidden units.
Okay, we're gonna mop these guys up. We're probably gonna need to reevaluate where we're at on this side of the map. Let's see if we can get a flank in.
Dead men sling no insults.
Victory is close enough to taste.
Okay, we outnumber them in terms of range material, so...
To glory! At your command.
Well, okay, now we can afford to really mess them up. So, a bloodier battle, but we were still able to pull it off. Even though we had a couple of disadvantages. I am really interested in the fact that Odysseus winds up exhausted so quickly.
Don't hold back!
Oh, wrong guy. Basically, I just want to make sure everybody's here to clean up the enemy.
The enemy hero has sustained a wound.
This is trained and ready. Are you really trying to outtalk foes? Massacre them!
The enemy stronghold will soon fall to you.
Thanks. I was in doubt. I'm curious if we can see a change in the animations for the tired guys. I guess once these guys run, we're not going to be able to see what they look like when they stand still, but... Okay, so this one counted as a close victory. I'm assuming just because the number of... too much weightlifting, not enough cardio. Yeah, so, I mean... I actually feel less bad about evenly distributed losses across my units than one unit really getting pounded, because these are all going to be replenishing in the they're all going to be replenishing in the settlement this turn. So we lost 236. Again, I mean, we outnumbered them, but I feel like that was a fairly decent performance given the fact that their spearman unit would kind of demolish us. So again, we have to occupy instead of loot and occupy because this is in my home province.
Is rewarded.
He's now a sapper. You need a strong back and arms and no fear of confined spaces, of course. Oh, and nerve by the cartload. -1 to enemy siege holdout time and +3 morale to all units in siege battles. So the Teleboans have been vanquished. There's nothing left of them but myth, legends, and the somber reminder of the fickleness of the gods.
Shining Odysseus.
Okay, so we've got Disciplinarian, -15 attrition to this hero's army, +35 income from raiding and bonus to the hit points, or the Collector, +30% to treasures looted after the battle, and +2.5 to the hero's hit points. Now, I'm more inclined towards the Collector because I tend not to raid very much. But, again, maybe I should be changing my approach because I'm playing Odysseus. In any case, I'm going to go for the Collector again, just because I know my tendencies. This is clearly not enough people over time. So, I am reluctant to bring in more slingers, not because I don't think slingers are useful, but I am sort of relying on these sword skirmishers. So what have we got for infantry? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 units. Yeah, I think half of the army dedicated to infantry is definitely not a bad place to start. I think I'm going to still hold out for the population surplus. We can do a commandment. So I tend to like doing organized games because of the bonus for the local growth. Is also worth noting. We're losing 11 per turn right now for happiness. That'll change. Eventually it'll start ticking up, but there are consequences for this sort of stuff. So I do want to try and keep my people happy. My other options would be trade tithe for bonus for resources, establishing a spy network, which, as you might guess, better for agents. Warrior camps, which will reduce recruitment costs, and intrepid seafaring, -2 construction time to all port buildings, and then plus 12% to campaign movement range of all armies, own armies in this province, which I'm not 100% sure how that works, to be honest, but... Oh, I didn't move my spy. I think I can actually reload. Achilles glared at him as he spoke. Hector, do not argue with me. I cannot forgive you. Lions and men cannot trust and exchange vows, and wolves and lambs will never reach a lasting agreement, for they shall forever hate one another. Likewise, there can never be peace between us, nor shall we swear oaths to one another. Instead, one of us shall fall, so that his blood may quench the fearsome thirst of Ares. Okay, so I could try and weaken Ellis, but the main point of this is just to get some intelligence, and then also, we're basically trying to work out how I might get a source of gold. Alright, so even if I go to war with Ellis, they are not necessarily... They're not going to be the people who I'm focusing on. However, I am going to want to take this province from them. So, next question is, if I go to war with them, in fact, now may not be a bad time to save the campaign in case I wind up making a really ridiculous choice.
Shining Odysseus.
It would be good to see what the diplomatic situation is. Okay. They're strength ranking 24, so they're actually fairly even towards me. They currently have a trade agreement with Ionia, but we don't have any kind of other kind of arrangement. So Sparta would be happy with a defensive pact. Actually, like a military alliance.
I look forward to hearing you out.
In this case, I'm just going to go for balancing the deal so that I can get a little extra.
I will, glad.
Now, I don't actually want them to help with this, but it's just nice to have someone in my corner. So essentially the idea is that if somebody wants to try and mess with me at home, they know that there's the danger that the Spartans are going to become involved. Why is this here? Oh, this is the place I just took. Okay, that's fine. I should double check that. Yes, this goes up to 5, so that is appropriate. The number of men you command will need to grow in order to meet the challenges ahead. Recruit more combat... Oh, sorry, we've already... This is the completion, so we got food and bronze for that.
disappear.
Okay. It would be good to know what the enemy's packing
Like a ghost in
on
the
that side. It would also be helpful to see what's going on in Alfiria. So we're going to start. So now I can see why it would be to my advantage to build a safe haven for the recruiting purposes. I hate that I'm waiting this out, but I think I am going to make my army a little bit stronger before we go after Altus. If nothing else, just so that I can get the numbers replenished. I also am going to need to decide whether or not I want more ranged units. So, 3 seems like a lot.
Quite so.
4 ranged units. Yeah, I'm not really sure about those numbers, but let's get you set up for bronze or tin trader. And we leave the rest of it. How are we changing in terms of opinion? We are gaining 3 per turn, so it's going to be a while before. I suspect we'll also see a drop in that once the army leaves. Firm but fair, this one is sometimes stern, sometimes stony, but always entirely equitable. +1 happiness into the province. Okay. So, I would like to learn a little bit more about this area here, but I think...
Shining Odysseus.
Nope, I am going to wait one more turn of this, so... I'm going to check out Altus. Actually, I'm going to do... Let's do Murmurs of Sedition.
Populace is a perfect distraction. I have a plan.
And we will now upgrade to a Citadel. So it makes my administration go up, but this gives me some big bonuses in terms of the things that I can upgrade. Now, my army's already going to be kind of full, but I can just make a second army and, you know, distribute the units a little bit better. Because again, I don't exactly have a front line here.
Your military might grows, and with it, your influence and reputation. Yet your enemies rally against you. Make the effort to expand your fighting forces and keep the foe at bay.
So I want this, but I also don't want to wait longer to start a fight with Altus. So the Spectre of War clouds the horizon in all directions. Increase the size of your forces further, for battles to come will tax your strength. So what I'm going to do here, I can try to assassinate a rival, but that costs gold. I could poison the well, which will suffer... Ooh, that's better than the garrison, actually.
Subtle means decisive.
Dracomakos, our spy, has successfully impaired Polynexos, belonging to Elis. The gods surely smile upon our endeavors.
All who wish to make a mark on the world seek to gain new skills through experience. This is as true for your agents as for your military leaders.
So one of the drawbacks here... Oh no, they are gonna... There's a little more than I thought.
Odysseus the Cunning.
This is a goodwill goodwill mission.
A well-placed blade can avert.
Okay, so our choice for our spy, Pathfinder, plus 12% to this agent's movement range, or plus 5% to spy actions. I do like the idea of being more effective with my support units. And let's go for... I think I'm going to go for more stone here. Well, okay, so here's actually the dilemma that I have. More stone is good for construction, but I actually want to upgrade this settlement first, because this is going to be the settlement where I get the spear unit, which is going to help me with my front line.
I'll win or die trying.
Just getting a read on some of these. So yeah, we've got the heavy sword skirmishers and we've got the spear runners. These are good, like, these are definitely better units, but they're not necessarily really frontline units. So I'm not really sure what to do with that, but I'm going to build something that gives me some spear units so I can have a proper front line.
Foreign emissaries seek a pact of non-aggression. If their offer is acceptable, it may lead to improved trade relations or even a formal alliance.
I am definitely okay with that. So one of the things that's not entirely clear to me about this Odysseus playthrough is I'm making a move on something that is going to be a source of gold for me, and there is a natural expansion option to the north against... Just want to wait for the... So taking these guys out. So the idea here is that I take Altus, Alfiria, or I maybe don't even worry about the fact that I've taken out, maybe we just ignore Alfiria for a little bit and then we move up and take these regions instead. But the, sorry, what was I trying to say? The one thing that's not entirely clear to me is the fact that I'm locking myself up here. Does that, is that not the most logical place for Odysseus to move? Would it instead be better for me to try and take these regions? Because I think when I see the AI play Odysseus, they do actually move up against these units first. I don't know though. It feels like having an income of each of the types is a good idea, but. Sorry, opportunity beckons. In any safe haven, ensure that one of the following buildings have been constructed: a warrior's lodge or a skirmisher's camp. For while mortals see in war bloodshed and death, godlike Odysseus instead sensed opportunity. As you receive reports from stone-encircled Mycenae of the gathering of a mighty Achaean host, you cannot help but smile. War, for all its misery, also offers a unique opportunity to ensure security and prosperity for your humble kingdom. The alliance will allow Ithaca to expand its reach because they will benefit, but it is your people who shall gain from it above all. So Odysseus' schemes will gain growth, bonus experience, and we will get a better diplomatic relationship. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to build the camp in Alfiria. I am going to start the war with Altus. Okay, so I can upgrade minor settlement.
Your enemies will fall.
And I'm going to keep poisoning the well here.
Let me try again.
Oh, trait gained. When this one greets with good morning, you should look up to the sky and check. -5%, so he's a liar. Ah! Poison the Well failure. Dracomakos, our spy, did not succeed in their attempt. Their mission against Fallen Exos belonging to Ellis has ended in abject failure. The gods were cruel this day. I didn't even think that I could get an envoy. So an own army logistic control will lower the upkeep cost. That seems like a really good improvement. Loyalist +3 to influence. Yeah, I think we'll go for Akris.
I will do what is necessary. Ithaca's lord.
I would have preferred to have another poison work, but I think it's time to kick this off. And we will not call Sparta in.
Engage the foe.
So this would be an incredibly foolish decision to go without siege equipment. Even with siege equipment, this is going to be a hard fight. So I'm going to set it up. I may just want to starve them out, which is not exactly the bravest move, but the real hope is that they sally forth and try to take me out that way. Okay, they want bronze in exchange for wood. I currently get 800 wood. I also get 126. This is a lot of my bronze for 9 turns, so I think I'm going to decline the deal with Ajax. So the really big trick, the really tricky part here is that I need to figure out how I'm going to take advantage of my flanking in a settlement fight. I'm not going to say no to food. I guess I don't need that much bronze right now, so I think I will agree to this deal. Okay, they did sally forth. So this is actually good news for us because instead of having to fight in the settlement, what I'm able to do here is take advantage of sort of the flanking and envelopment. So the ambushers probably are going to have to deal with the spearmen. There's more spearmen that I can handle. We'll definitely dedicate a couple of the sword skirmishers to disrupting their own skirmishers. Actually, the Achaean slingers can probably work on the skirmishers. The giant vanguard is going to be one of the tougher ones for me to deal with because I don't have any spear units in reply. So this is not going to be an easy fight. In fact, they'd give me a valiant defeat on this one. But let's see if we can. Live up to our namesake. Ah, and here are the reinforcements. So I suppose this is the sort of thing that Vanguard Master was talking about.
Ready to serve. At your command. At your command. We will. Making it happen. At your command. It shall be. Agreed. Trained and ready.
Yeah, the big thing I'm worried about is that there's not a very big distance between these two things, right? So what I think I'm going to try and do here,
Odysseus.
I'm going to take these units.
Poised for action.
So the hope here, now the problem is that this is a really thin group. I think I'm actually going to bring one more. Actually, no, I can repurpose them. So the plan here is that my hope is that they see this as the main force. And so they're going to spend a whole bunch of time focusing on these units instead of these units. If they cluster their units here, we're done for. And I'm going to start with slow motion at the start because...
The enemy is receiving...
Ah! No way! Oh, Jesus. The auto fire screwed me. Get in there, lads! This is gonna suck a lot. Yeah, so in this one there's no delay. You just have to take it.
The foe has sighted your hidden units.
Okay, so the hope here is that we can get a bit of an advantage by hitting him in the back. So one of them's got to go disrupt the units hitting us in the flank, or hitting us with range. Okay, let's pair you off. Out of units, though. So at least we've stopped the ranged attacks on us.
Your warriors have been routed.
Okay, these guys are pretty much going to their death. Or are they? Yeah, no, I just screwed them. Okay, let's get these guys to concentrate on the heavies. These guys are about to get demolished, so let's get them working on the range. There's too many, the weight of the units is too much in here. But it is looking encouraging on this end.
Your warriors are losing heart.
That's not good. You guys really need to get involved. So we're having some successes. I think I need to pick a side that I'm gonna focus my attention on. So we're gonna focus on winning this fight. That's upsetting that these guys have just been standing there. Oh, right, because we... I get it. Okay. The one bit of good news is, for the most part, the spear units that we were worrying about are quite weak. But they are going to have some reinforcements that are alive and kind of come back to hurt
By
us.
Ares, your warriors are rallying.
Okay, so... The big worry that I have right now is that it's nice to have these people in sort of reserve and getting better. They may run off the battlefield. But I do kind of need to address the... I need to address the problem of... of their fatigue. Okay, so the good news is the heavy sword skirmishers are still in. But we are really hanging on by a thread. I also don't have a lot of people inside my range, so we can't take advantage of my abilities. I feel like these guys need to make an... Even though they count as a scarier target, I feel like we need to make some kind of an effort to get an edge. And we're going to turn you off of skirmish mode because these young spears are about to chop us to bits. I guess you don't chop with a spear, but... Okay, now my heavy sword skirmishers are just being overwhelmed here, but Odysseus is about to get spearmen to the face. Yeah, not looking good for my numbers here, but let's try and tilt a couple things to my favor.
Your warriors are rallying.
We are not going to get there in time, I think. Maybe if I moved Odysseus a bit closer, but... Well, there's nothing saying I can't. Yeah, this is gonna probably cause more problems. There's definitely a few of these guys we can kill, though.
Your warriors have spotted hidden foes.
And this is my lesson for not turning skirmish back on these guys. I'm pretty sure this is a lost cause. Game doesn't seem to think so yet, but they are considerably more concentrated than we are, and a lot of my guys are running. So I'm going to do is get these guys to hit the young spears head on, and then we're going to get these sword skirmishers to flank. Although them seeing the slingers run is not helping the morale. This is not going to work for them. Odysseus is in trouble now.
Your hero is under attack.
If I wasn't going to lose before, I'm pretty sure I'm going to lose now.
Sons of Achaea! Foes, beware! I'm ready!
So let's try that again. But being cheesy with the reinforcements is not gonna cut it. However, there's a very ballsy way of doing this.
So be it! Death from afar! As always.
It's like they're gonna be able to hit us in the back doing this, but it gives me the element of surprise.
The enemy is receiving reinforcements.
Oh wow, they moved right back. I was not expecting that. So I guess the question is, do I commit to this terrible decision now that... Yes. Yes, I do. In fact, I'm going to stop. Okay, we're gonna actually get them focusing on the young spears. So spending a little bit too much time moving around, which is going to be a problem. So I think I'm going to send the heavy swords right up the middle like this.
The foe has sighted your hidden units.
No, we're already reinforcing that. Okay, I was really hoping that this flank would have done more on these young spears. This is actually going to be a problem now. So we're going to get them to face him head on. This is useless.
Your warriors are losing heart.
Okay, that's not a surprise. The question is, where do the reinforcements come from? Yeah, the hope was I could kind of break him in the middle before all this happens, so we're going to be basically in the same position we were last time. So you can see here, the heavy swords are getting demolished as well. Even the guys who went to chase down the ranged units are not doing so well. They're about to get hit in the back by the giants, so they're toast.
Your warriors have been routed.
So normally these guys would have been reinforcements on these spearmen, but it's pretty clear we're going to lose that fight. What should have been happening was the skirmishers, or the ambushers, should have been taking on these spearmen. But again, like here, I'm just getting crushed. I guess the one thing we've got going for us is we're finally hitting these slingers, but God, we can't even take out a regular militia unit like this now. So as long as I'm able to recover my units in a somewhat ordered way, we may be able to salvage this still. And I really do not want to be dedicating units on these giants, but it feels like it's forcing the issue here. So I feel like there was some respectable damage that was done to them in the middle here, but there's just so many units that we have running now. It does sort of raise the question as to whether or not it was worth it. We need you hitting the slingers.
Your warriors are rallying.
So basically, as long as we don't lose them, I'm feeling a bit better. We need you focusing on these skirmishers. Well, that or the... Let's get one working on the young spears, because it's embarrassing that we actually need to deal with those. Yeah. Not looking good, particularly going up against this guy.
By Ares, your warriors are rallying.
What I need are the heavy swords back so we can start working on their stronger units. it's not clear that that will materialize in time, especially with all this range stuff. Yeah, I think we're done. Run, Odysseus! You have too much to live for. How is our unit doing? They're definitely hurting. Let's see if we can give them an advantage. Actually, you know what? There's more to be gained over here. I think it's going to end the same way, though. Just a little too scattered for this to be helpful. Okay, we've got my heavy guys back. Well, let's see what we can do. I definitely need to be pretty prudent with how I'm using my units at this point, because I don't think we've got that many more retreats left in us. Oh, yeah. This is where we start losing everybody. Okay, we're gonna try something nuts here. I'm just hoping the weight of these two units are going to be able to
is under attack.
To make this happen. Okay, so what's happening to Odysseus sucks, but the hope is that the flank's going to make the difference. So notice some of their precious units are starting to really look worse for wear here. This is not good, though. So if we can take out this general and redeploy these guys, we might be able to win it. There's a lot of ifs in that. Okay, these guys are completely gone. So I think these guys are going to arrive before Dion is able to carry the day. If we can break him, though, he's so close. And again, we're losing too many units. I'm focusing way too much on this fight. Not the arrival of the units. I think that's just going to be enough to... Oh! He did it! This is a very specific strategy that I have for this. Okay. Our heavy swords almost certainly lost, yeah. The worst thing is the best we can hope for at this. Oh man, these guys ran. Okay, these guys are screwed, I think. Oh no, we're winning. Wow. Inspire us, Odysseus. This is the, when you read the Iliad, this is the, like, and then godlike, you know, essentially when the heroes wind up doing absolutely preposterous feats. That is actually a mechanic inside of the game. Oh, I think I just reinforced the unit that's about to get crushed. Yeah, that was not a good choice. So, like, here's the thing. It's on a razor's
One of
edge.
your units has no more ammunition.
It's not obvious we're gonna lose this yet. It's likely we're going to lose this. I think there's just too many of these units that are going to be able to turn around and really cause us some trouble. Yeah, so these guys are going to run off, and then we're not going to have any front. We're not going to have any melee units. All right. Well, let's take advantage of our supernatural powers. Yeah. So some of the units are running forever, but not enough of them. So we don't have any, we're pure ranged at this point. Actually, this is still a good idea to fling things at them.
Your warriors have spotted hidden foes.
This is gonna ruin us. Oh, he's tired again. Yeah, this is where we lose.
Odysseus! For glory! Lethal at range! Let's see blood! Strike hard! At your command! Forward we go! Odysseus! Train ready! To victory!
So everybody but Odysseus is running.
Your time has come!
Oh.
Slings prepare!
Get back in there.
Your journey ends here! Odysseus! Your end approaches! Slings prepare! Fall back!
You guys need to pick whether you're
Your
running or not.
faithless
There we
hero
go.
flees like a craven dog.
Valiant defeat. I think I gotta call it there. We are actually 2 hours, or sorry, an hour over. So yeah, that was not great. Oddly enough, I mean, we're bloodied, but we're not. okay, like, here's the crazy thing, right? They deployed 1503. It's 664 versus 688 in terms of what's remaining. But then again, they can replenish casualties because they won the fight. They want stone from us, so we're not going to give that up.
Control of every settlement in a province will give you complete dominion over all who live there. Expand your holdings and bring more of the commandments may be...
Stop!
Of Ithaca.
A foe has struck from the shadows. An enemy agent.
Okay, so if I do something nuts...
Odysseus the cunning. That's beyond me.
So obviously here we're hoping they sally forth again.
The helping hand of fate.
So Prophecy of Doom kept him from doing anything. Okay, what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to save this and let the autosave... I'm going to load the autosave... I guess the quick save will be sufficient. But yeah, I thought that was the back button. Well, now I'm committed. Yeah, that was interesting. Like I said, I'm really not familiar with Odysseus, and I'm also probably not very good at Total War. So, but it's fun to experiment. Thank you everybody for hanging out on a pretty weird anything goes sort of stream. I hope the data stuff was kind of interesting. I will say, like, my original intention was to do Against the Storm, and I like Against the Storm. I just knew that I kind of needed something a bit more, you know, just I needed like I needed something like light to sort of clear my head, and I got that. And I have some writing to do. I've got some videos to record tomorrow. Lot to do actually. So I'm sorry to leave it here, but I do thank you all for, sorry, I said all that, but yeah, I do thank you for, putting up with me. I think I'm going to host W. Shand. I saw Johnny Big Time streaming a little bit earlier, but, sorry, it's Will Shand now. He's no longer online, so I will leave you in his capable hands. Overall plans for me, I want to try and get some stuff. So we're in December, last month of the year. I hope you're able to make the most of the time. For myself, I do want to try and get one series. So I want to try and get a couple of videos I know a couple of you are really looking forward to done by sometime next week. I have no idea if that'll happen. But I also want to try and get a couple of video projects like VODs for YouTube. I want to try and get some of those started at least by the end of December. And one other thing I'd like to do in December, I'm thinking of moving beyond some of the strategy stuff and just like properly sitting down and playing a more mainstream game. And that could be something like Resident Evil. That could be something like, I don't know, I did Wolfenstein. I guess we could do Doom Eternal or something like that. But if any of you have games that you'd sort of like to see me do sort of just a sustained run of playing, I don't think there's going to be a lot of stuff that gets released in December, so that might be a good month to do that sort of stuff. So just, you know, being able to cut loose, do something fun for Christmas, I'm thinking of. But anyways, I got 8 seconds before we go to Shan, so have a good night. See you Monday. Take care.